What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. Going to be giving an early look into UFC Vegas 44, or is it 34? 44? 44, right?
44, yes.
So many Vegases, it's crazy. Had a week off. 1 week feels way too long. Hopefully, we're not rusty here, but yeah, looking forward to it. As always, I'm here with Uncle Weezy, the man behind the stats. Uncle Weezy, how was your break, and are you looking forward to this card?
Dude, I've had better breaks. You know, I got rinsed in the last UFC event, and then the next morning woke up and tested positive for COVID. So I've been, I didn't really get to go to any Thanksgiving festivities. I've kind of been quarantined all week, but it looks like my immune system finally 10-8'd this shit, and I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to get back to Stat Diggers here. We got 3 more events for the rest of the year. We got 14 fights on UFC Vegas 44, and I can't wait to get into the stats with all of you guys.
3 weeks left to end the year. I say we finish strong. I say we go out with a bang. And let's check out the chat before we get into some stats. Tim, first one in the chat, and we are back for some stats, ass shavings, and more stats. Let's go, Brady and Weezy. What is up, fellas? What is up, Tim? How you doing? Hopefully you had a great break. Tristan in the chat as well. Sucked there was no MMA this weekend. Glad it is back. I'm very glad it is back as well. We have 2 saying, oi, oi, 2. How you doing? David saying Mike Perry with a little split dub yesterday. Saw that. Looking forward to 3 strong weeks to finish 2021. Me as well. Dave says he's still shitting turkey. Oh, no. Hopefully you get that out of you, Dave. Brady Bunch, ready to roll. Let's go, Pablo. Big B and the Wheeze are ready to do some research. Shout out to Dream Team MMA, the Netherlands. How you doing? We got Carrillo in the chat as well. Dan Goldstein, that week off was good to let my sphincter heal after being washed the last card. Good to see you. Well, Uncle Weezy, shout out to Dan Goldstein, Rick in the chat as well. Dab, Father, Vince Morales time. It could be. Shout out to Jonathan Reynolds with the Vince Morales profile picture there. All right, so I say we get into it. Weezy, we have, 14 or 15 fights to break down? 14, right?
14 fights on this card, man. I mean, we got a lot of work to do, dude.
Yep, lots to go through, so I say we get right into it. Before we do, so if you guys can please smash the like button, also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We are live every Sunday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time. But first fight of the night, they have switched this bout order around so many times throughout the last 2 weeks, so it may change again, it may not, but as of now, we have Luis Smolka going against Vince Morales. We have Smolka, 30 years old, 5'9", with a 68-inch reach, going against Vince Morales, 31 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. So Vince Morales is going to be 1 year older. He's going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage, but he will have a 2-inch reach advantage there. We'll take a look at their last few fights. Luis Smolka is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A submission win over Sue Madarji, a submission loss to Matt Schnell, a knockout win over Ryan McDonald, a submission loss to Casey Kenny, and then a knockout win over Jose Quinones. As far as Vince Morales, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A decision loss to Song Yadong, a decision win over Ayman Zahabi, a decision loss to Benito Lopez, a knockout loss to Chris Gutierrez, and then a decision win over Draco Rodriguez. So, very interesting card to fight to kick off the card here. Weezy, what do you like in this one?
Yeah, man. So, tail of the tape is pretty much the same. We got Smolka with a 2-inch height advantage and Morales with a 2-inch reach advantage. We're going to see Smolka is going to be the one that's more experienced here, having 24 professional fights in comparison to 15 for Morales, about 100 more minutes in the pro cage for Luis Smolka, and about 3 more years as a pro overall. So definitely some more time in the game, some more fights, and way more UFC fights too for Smolka. 15 UFC fights compared to 6 for Morales, twice as much time in the UFC cage. An 8-7 record in the UFC for Smolka, 2-4 record for Vince Morales here. When we look at the finish numbers, we do see that Smolka is a pretty damn good finisher here, finishing 6 of his 8 UFC wins and 88% of his 17 UFC or career wins. So that's 15 of 17 wins coming inside the distance for Luis Smolka. And 3 of his 7 losses have come inside the distance. All 3 of those losses in the UFC coming by way of submission. And we see Morales, a 70% finish rate in his own right. He's finished 7 of 10 pro wins, but he's never finished a UFC win. And he's been finished in 3 out of his 5 pro losses, twice by submission, once by knockout. And he's been finished once by submission and once by knockout in his 4 UFC losses. when we look at the striking numbers, we're going to see some similar numbers here on the offensive side. Both these guys are landing more strikes than they absorb. It's Smolka who's a little bit more accurate, while it's Morales who has a little bit more power. And on the defensive side, we see Morales with a little bit better striking defense at 55.5% in comparison to 53 for Smolka. Both of these guys are getting knocked down around 0.7% of the significant strikes that they absorb. So the striking numbers do look pretty close to me here. I mean, Smolka may be just a slight edge in terms of, striking differential and a little bit more accurate on the offensive side. So, but when we look at the grappling numbers, this is where we see a little bit of a difference here in that Smolka will be willing to grapple here. 48 takedown attempts in 15 fights, while for Vince Morales, he's only attempted 4 in 6 fights and only gotten 1 of them. So when we see Morales here, his fights are taking place in non-control time positions about 92% of his fights thus far. So Vince definitely wants to keep it standing and has done a great job of doing so. Despite the fact that he's been taken down 7 times, he's only been controlled. It looks like about 3 minutes on those 7 takedowns. So he's definitely got a good get-up game. He's not easy to hold down. And, Smolka's got pretty lousy takedown defense in his own right. But we do see that Smolka's fights take place in control time positions 57% of the time in comparison to the 7 or 8% of the time they do for Morales. So what'll be interesting to see here is if Smolka chooses to stand with Vince Morales and kind of engage Vince where he's most comfortable, which is where standing. But, Smolka's gotten 18 takedowns in 15 fights, and more than half of his fights are taking place in control time positions. So I think this might be the first time that we see Vince tested in the grappling a little bit more than we're used to seeing against guys like Draco, Chris Gutierrez, Benito Lopez, Ayman Zahabi, Song Yadong. These guys are primarily strikers. We know that Song doesn't shoot for takedowns. We know Gutierrez doesn't shoot for takedowns. Draco would probably rather stand as well. It's going to be interesting. I like Smolka's experience advantage here. I like the fact that he's a little more well-rounded instead of just relying on the boxing like Morales does. And we know that boxers tend to get their lead leg chewed up. So, there's a few reasons to like Smolka here. Experience, grappling. He's fought a little bit better competition. And, he's just been around a lot longer. So I'm going to go with Smolka here, but I'm interested to hear what you're thinking on this one.
Yeah, I'm leaning on the Smolka side as well, but do want to shout out Carrillo in the chat with the $10 super sticker. Shout out to you. And he says, appreciate you guys, appreciate you as well for hanging out, and appreciate the donation. We also have the general in the chat. Shout out to the general, taking notes as always. But yeah, I thought you brought up some really interesting points in terms of Vince Morales. Yeah, that 50% takedown defense has a really good get-up game, was not able to, get controlled that much. Drake Rodriguez took him down 3 times in his last fight. And other than that, like you said, Chris Gutierrez, striker, Benito Lopez, striker, Ayman Zahabi took him down, Song Yadong, mostly a striker, took him down 2 times. And then we saw on the Contender Series, Domingo Pilarte took Vince Morales down once and finished him really shortly after. So yeah, I feel like Smolka can definitely test him there. I think on the feet, it's very close and competitive, but I think the difference might be that ground game. So yeah, I'm leaning Smolka as well as of now. We see that Smolka is a slight favorite. He opened up -185. He's now -145. Vince Morales opened up +160. He's now +125. We have the over 2.5 rounds -150. The under 2.5 rounds is +120. I don't know. I guess I'd kind of lean under, but no strong opinion on that. I think Smolka could potentially submit him. So any thoughts on the over, on the under? Any thoughts on the money line?
Yeah, not so much on a thought on the over-under, rather than maybe if you're on that Smolka side, look at him to win inside the distance, and here's why. You got an 88% finish rate, 15 of 17 wins coming inside the distance for Smolka, and then we got 3 of 5 of Morales' losses have come inside the distance for Morales. So not only can Smolka finish, but he's got 4 knockouts and 2 submissions. And while we've seen Morales be finished 60% of his losses, maybe a Smolka inside the distance bet might be a little bit juicier, and you could put down less money to win more if you think that Smolka is going to continue to finish. And, dude's finished 6 of his 8 UFC wins. So that's something that has a little bit of interest for me here. But other than just the straight time props, I think Smolka is going to be the guy that's more likely to finish here than Morales, as we've seen Morales hasn't finished any of his UFC wins. And Smolka tends to be finished by submission and not by knockout. And that's not really Morales' game, submitting people. So 2 wins by submission in his career, but we know he's more of a boxer.
Yep, 100% agree. I think if there is a finish, it is on the Smolka side. Like you mentioned, nearly a 90% finish rate, and Morales has been submitted twice, knocked out once. We do have the inside the distance prop here on 5 dimes. Smolka to win inside the distance is plus 227, so it looks like they're kind of all over it there. I'm curious to see what the submission prop would be as well.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one because Smolka does get submissions, man. And that's kind of like how I feel you're going to want to beat Vince. He's been submitted twice, once in the UFC. So, yeah, absolutely. That would be an interesting one.
Sounds good. Looks like we are on about the same side for this one. Luis Smolka, Vince Morales going with Smolka here. Let's move on to the next fight. This fight is a very intriguing one. Alex Moreno going against Mickey Gall. We have Moreno, 31 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Mickey Gall, 29 years old, 6'2" with a 74-inch reach. So Gall, he's going to be 2 years younger. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage as well. So the tail of the tape advantage definitely does go to the Mickey Gall side. As far as the last couple fights, Alex Moreno is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Got knocked out by Chaos Williams, but as we know now, Chaos Williams is a freaking monster. Won a decision against Reese McKee, lost a decision against Anthony Pettis, knocked out Donald Cerrone, and then won a decision against David Zawada. As far as Mickey Gall, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a submission win over George Sullivan, a knockout loss to Diego Sanchez, a decision win over Salim Tahari, a decision loss to Mike Perry, and then a submission loss against Jordan Williams. Submission win over Jordan Williams. So, yeah, what I noticed in the last 2 fights, Perry and Williams especially, Mickey Gall's striking has looked a lot better. I think he's made improvements, leaps and bounds. We saw that at distance. I went back and looked at the numbers between him and Perry. At distance, they were actually, tied for strikes landed at distance. But Mike Perry was able to, go to his wrestling in that fight, take down Mickey Gall. He hurt him here and there as well and win that fight. And then as far as Jordan Williams, he went out there, he dropped Jordan Williams early, and then he hurt him bad again, forced Williams to shoot in on a takedown, and then submitted Williams shortly after. So I think we're seeing some really big improvements in the game of Mickey Gall. As far as Alex Moreno, this is a guy that he's very solid everywhere. He's a really frustrating fighter for me, though, because this guy has a legit black belt in BJJ, but for some reason, I'm not sure why, does not decide to go to the wrestling route all that often. And I feel like in this fight, if he takes down Mickey Gall, kind of like how Mike Perry did, like Diego Sanchez did, I feel like this is such an easy matchup for Alex Moreno. But again, that's not something he does. So if this does play out standing, I do favor Moreno there as well. But Gall's striking has improved a lot. So yeah, I do like Moreno in this fight, but I feel like it could be a little bit closer than the line does indicate. What do you feel about this fight, Weezy?
Yeah, it's a fascinating matchup, in my opinion. I mean, we got Gall with some really nice advantages in the tail of the tape here, being 2 years younger, 3 inches taller, 2 inches of reach, and he's a switch fighter comparison to just orthodox for Moreno. And we see Moreno's got a nice little experience advantage here, 18 more professional fights, about 150 more minutes in the pro cage, 5 more years as a pro Alex Moreno has. But look at this. I mean, we've actually watched Mickey Gall grow up before our eyes as UFC fans. I mean, this guy is, 9 of his 10 professional fights have been in the UFC. And the one that wasn't was on Dana White's Looking for a Fight, which he won that fight, which was his pro debut. And then he called out CM Punk and wound up getting into the UFC. So we've seen Mickey Gall grow up, right in front of our eyes. And, a great example of that is the fact that even though Moreno has been 5 more years as a pro and that he's had 14 UFC fights, he's still only got 5 more UFC fights than Mickey Gall. So, yeah, this is interesting. Moreno has fought half of his career at the UFC level. Mickey Gall's fought 90% of his career at the UFC level. When we look at how these guys finish, we see that Moreno, like you mentioned, a legit black belt who chooses not to use that black belt. He wins fights via submission and knockout, but we do see that he has 1 submission win in the UFC and 2 knockout wins, 6 decision wins. But, you know, at least he's an equal opportunity finisher, is Moreno. He can knock you out. He could submit you. While Mickey Gall has finished 86% of his pro wins inside the distance by submission, you know, but he's never knocked anybody out. And both of these guys have been knocked out in their only finish losses. So Mickey Gall's been knocked out once in his 3 losses, and Moreno once in his 4 losses. So, you know, both of these guys have been finished by knockout, but it's Moreno who's going to be the more diverse finisher here. When we look at the striking numbers, predictably, we're seeing a little bit better numbers out of Moreno. 5.14 landed, only 3.89 absorbed per minute, about 42% accurate, showing okay power at 0.29 knockdowns per 15 minutes, 56.5% striking defense. He's been knocked down twice in 14 fights, has Moreno, only being average knocked down 0.19 times per 15 minutes. And we see that Gall is actually absorbing more than 1 significant strike per minute than he lands, as he lands 2.6, absorbs 3.68, 46.5% striking accuracy, actually showing pretty good power, landing 2 knockdowns in 177 significant strikes landed. And he's been knocked down twice in 250 significant strikes absorbed. So, you know, it's going to be Moreno who definitely has that striking advantage. And then when we look at the grappling numbers, both of these guys are getting out-controlled by their opponents, but Moreno really doesn't go for takedowns. He's gotten 4 in 14 fights, but he's only attempted 16 in 14 fights. And less than 10% control time off of those 16 takedown attempts. And he's been controlled about 14% of his UFC career, but he's showing pretty lousy 52% takedown defense. But not to be outdone, Mickey Gall is showing 36% takedown defense and only 28% takedown accuracy in his own right. But Gall is a little more active with the wrestling, Brady, here. At least he's got 21 takedown attempts in 9 fights. And he attempts almost 2.5 submissions per 15 minutes. So when he does get the fight to the ground, or when it is on the ground, the guy is absolutely active trying to finish the fight. But we do know that Moreno also very well schooled on the ground here. So, you know, I don't think either one of these guys is going to be in major trouble on the ground. The one thing that's kind of surprising to me is how close the strength of schedule stats are here, because I would have thought that Moreno would have been the guy that would have been shining here. But the ratio is a little bit better for Gall, and not much in terms of total experience worse than Moreno. And when we look at the wins, we see that Moreno's got wins over more experienced competition, but really the win-loss ratio of the guys that Moreno's beating is pretty similar to the ones that Gall is beating. And then when you look at who these guys are losing to, I mean, it's actually Gall who's lost to the better competition here, according to my metric, is he's fighting much more experienced competition, guys with 19 total fights and a 1.24 win-to-loss ratio compared to 10.5 total fights and a 1 win-loss ratio for Moreno. So, you know, even though I do think that Moreno should be the minute winner on the feet and the grappling is going to be close, the fact that Gall is such a huge underdog here at almost like plus 180 is very intriguing to me, because Moreno hasn't beaten that much better competition than Gall has. Moreno is more experienced, but he hasn't even fought close to the amount of a percentage at the UFC level that Gall has. You know, and we are seeing some improvements here from Gall. This is an interesting fight, man. I don't feel good about laying minus 220 on Alex Moreno in this spot. What do you think?
Yeah, if you told me that, hey, Alex Moreno is going to come out here, he's going to shoot multiple takedowns, I'd have no problem laying the minus 210. Something interesting that I saw as you take a look throughout Moreno's UFC career, and the very first time he ever got a takedown was against Reese McKee. He went 3 for 3. After that, he got a takedown against Anthony Pettis. And then after that, he did attempt 2 against Donald Cerrone. So it does look like he's starting to wrestle more, which I'd highly recommend. I mean, this guy is a very good grappler. Why not use that black belt, right? I feel like if he comes in here, takes down Mickey Gall, who has a 36% takedown defense. Jordan Williams took him down. Mike Perry took him down, controlled him. Diego Sanchez took him down 4 times and controlled him and finished him. I feel like if Moreno wrestles, it's going to be a pretty easy fight. So if I knew he was going to wrestle, yeah, I wouldn't mind laying that price tag. And even on the feet, like I still favor Moreno as well. But like you mentioned, Mickey Gall has made some really, really big, massive improvements. I mean, you take a look at some of his fights earlier in his career, compare him to now, his striking looks much, much better, and he's dangerous as well. When Mickey Gall does win, most of the time it is by submission. And I don't know if he submits Alex Moreno. If he does win, maybe it's like a club and sub situation. But if Gall's going to win, does he win a decision? Maybe, but he's more so like a finisher, right? Like he has an 86% finish rate, all 86% coming by submission. I don't know if he submits Alex Moreno. I think it'd have to be like a club and sub. So I'm on the Moreno side. Yeah, the price tag is wide. We see that he is, if I can find, Mickey Gall opened up as a plus 230 dog. He's now plus 180. Alex Moreno opened up minus 270, and he's now minus 210. For me, it is probably favored or pass, but I don't know if I'm running to the window to lay it on Moreno here. The fight doesn't go to decision, is sitting at plus 120. The fight goes to decision, is sitting at minus 160. I think that's kind of interesting, but I think if Moreno wins, it's probably decision. And I think if Gall wins, it's probably a finish. The over 2.5 rounds, minus 140. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 110. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or doesn't go, or the unders?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably bet the over here before I would bet the under. I mean, we've got a pretty good sample size of combined losses here. There's 10 of them. And Moreno's only been finished twice and Gall once. So only 3 of those 10 fights have finished inside the distance. An implied probability of 30%. I mean, like that's very low, so that's the problem. I would probably bet that this fight does go over or goes to decision, because I really don't see Moreno knocking out Gall and vice versa in terms of knockouts. And neither one of these guys is ever been submitted. So, I think the over the fight goes would probably be the safest way to play this one. And then, Mickey Gall's at plus 180. Boy, if he keeps making these improvements, he's still only 29 years old. We could see him get a win here potentially. Moreno is not a world beater. But then again, neither one of these guys has great takedown defense, and where Gall, I think, usually has the biggest advantage, I don't think he's going to have a big grappling advantage here. So I could see why the line is kind of wide, but I still wouldn't bet Moreno at minus 220 here.
Yeah, I think instead of betting Moreno, I think an interesting thing would be to just bet the over 2.5 rounds, minus 140, rather than laying minus 210. I think if Moreno wins, it is going to go over, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, like Moreno throws heat. He loves to throw down, and he's a fun guy to watch. He does not bide his time, but Gall is an interesting test. He's 3 inches taller, got a 2-inch reach advantage, fights out of both stances. It's going to be interesting to see how Moreno tries to close the distance here, but he does use pressure well. It's going to be a good fight, man. I can't wait for this one.
Oh, yeah, should be a good one. Brass Knuckles saying, seems like a pretty easy fight to me, regardless of any stat. Moreno is equal, if not better, on the ground and a better stand-up. Yeah, I do agree with that. But yeah, Mickey Gall has been looking better and better each fight, so I do think we'll see the best version of Mickey Gall. So we'll keep moving on. We have the next fight. We have Azamzat Murzakanov going against Jared Vanderaa. Murzakanov is 32 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach, going against Jared Vanderaa, 29 years old, 6'4", with an 80-inch reach. So Weezy, Murzakanov was supposed to fight that bum, Philippe Lins. Lins pulled out, and me and you both called it. We said that there is no way Philippe Lins is making 205. I saw a picture on Instagram a couple weeks ago. He looked, a lot heavier than 205, and then he pulls out, I think, today. So in steps in Jared Vanderaa, and this fight is going to be at heavyweight. And I was like, there's no way this fight's going to be at 205, because Jared Vanderaa weighed in, I think, like 265 just about in his last fight. So some big things here on the tail of the tape. So Vanderaa is going to be 29 years old. He's going to be 3 years younger. He's going to have a 6-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a massive 9-inch reach advantage as well. We'll take a look at the last few fights. Murzakanov, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Obviously, he is 10-0 undefeated. A notable win, I see there, Andre Muniz. He went out there and starched Muniz in like a minute, and then went on the Contender Series and got a knockout win there in the first round. As far as Jared Vandery, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Went on the Contender Series, knocked out Harry Hunsucker, and then he went and lost to Sergey Spivak in the second round, TKO. And then he beat Justin Tafa by decision as an underdog. And then he got recently TKO'd by Alexander Romanov. So, yeah, this is a very, very interesting fight. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see the Lins fight, but then again, I really didn't. I was kind of tempted on the Lins side because I'm not all that sold on Murzakanov. This is a guy that, Weezy, it says 32 on here. On Tapology, it says 35. Is he 32 or 35? I'm not sure.
32 according to UFC stats. So that's always where I go.
He looks 40. Sure. He looks 40. He looks 45.
Well, he does. Yeah, I mean, he does. Some of these cats, man, I just don't believe their birth certificates, man.
so who knows? But yeah, who knows? Who knows how old this guy is? But regardless, he took a 2-year layoff and then went on the Contender Series, got a first-round knockout here. I kind of went through his record. I dug into this one, and he's never been to the third round. He has won 2 decisions. The one on Tapology, it says it was 3 rounds. I went back and watched it. It was 2 rounds. And then the other one was a 2-round fight. And what I noticed was when he does get out of that first round, he slows down a ton. I remember watching the one fight where in between rounds 1 and rounds 2, he was like gassed out on the stool. His coaches were like shaking his arms, and he's able to get takedowns here or there. I'm just wondering if he's going to be able to either A, knock out Jared Vandery, who's very tough, or B, is he going to be able to take down a much bigger Vandery, which that's definitely possible because Vandery has shown a 20% takedown defense, but that 20% takedown defense is against a 6'2", 265-pound Alexander Romanov, and it's against a 6'3" or 4", 260-pound Sergey Spivak. So, yeah, very weird fight. This is going to be Murzanakov's first fight at heavyweight, and I'm curious to see what these guys look like on the scales. I'm curious to see how these guys size up because this is going to be a big size advantage for Vandery. So, yeah, interesting one here, Weezy. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm glad Felipe Lins isn't fighting. We were laughing our asses off because when I got COVID, we decided that we were actually going to do Stat Diggers last week. And, when I got COVID, I was like, maybe we just put it off until next week. And you were saying, yeah, and there'll probably be a couple of fights that are going to drop off. And I was saying, yeah, I mean, like Felipe Lins isn't showing up. So there's no way. I mean, I know if we did Stat Diggers last week, I was joking that there was no way that Lins was going to show up. And of course he doesn't show up. That's what hell must be like. If you're like a guy that really wants to see Felipe Lins fight, like you're in hell because you're never going to see him fight. He's never going to show up ever again now that he's not allowed to use steroids anymore. So, and then we've got this one here, which is bizarre. I mean, like they couldn't find Murzakanov, a 205-pounder. I mean, like you have Felipe Lins who tells you that, oh, yeah, I'm going to cut down to 205. And then you fucking believe him. The people in the UFC, they believed him. They actually thought that he would show up for this fight. And even Murzakanov had to be like, what the fuck are you doing pairing me up against a guy who never shows up and now is going to have to cut 50 pounds in order to make weight? I mean, it's unbelievable. But yeah, so now we've got this one, Brady, and it's a screaming fight doesn't go to decision here because Murzakanov, like you said, has been to decision only twice, and one of them was a 2-round fight that probably wouldn't have made it to the third. And we got Vandery, who's got an 83% finish rate in his 12 wins, a 66% finish rate in his 6 losses. And then we got a guy like Murzakanov, who's really been out of the first round, I think, just twice in his entire career. And Vandery's taking the fight on short notice. And then we add, the 9-inch reach advantage, the 6-inch height advantage. This one should be violent, dude. It should be very, very violent, and it should end quickly. We don't have much in the way of stats, obviously, because Murzakanov only had 1 fight in the UFC, and it lasted only 3 minutes when he knocked out Scheffel. And Vandery's been around for a minute here. This will be his 5th UFC level fight. And he's got more experience, 120 more minutes of cage time, 8 more pro fights. But it's Murzakanov, whose career for some reason has been 12 years long, despite the fact that he's only had 10 professional fights. So, this one, if we don't want to get too into it, we could say fight doesn't go to decision is a great looking bet here. I mean, we see that Vandeira is showing some really bad stats against somebody that hits as hard as Murzakanov does. For instance, 39.63% striking defense. Very bad recipe against somebody that hits as hard as Azamat. 20% takedown defense. Very bad thing. If you don't get up off the ground, you might get ground and pounded here. And then, you got a guy like Murzakanov who very rarely goes out of the first round, throws everything into every punch. So if Vandeira, with that giant mountain head of his, can absolutely absorb some of these shots, get this into the second round, we could see him have some success too. So I'm really loving the fight doesn't go to decision here. I just see this fight ending violently.
Yeah, I think if Murzakanov wins, it's going to be in the first round. If he gets out of the first round, I actually have some serious concerns about him. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Tafa fight where everybody thought Tafa was going to knock out Vandeira in the first round, as did I. And then Vandeira was kind of able to weather the early storm, was able to outstrike Tafa. And I was actually really impressed with what I saw with Vandeira rounds 2 and rounds 3, just throwing a ton of output. His cardio looked really good in that fight. Whereas Murzakanov, I think his cardio is very, very suspect. Like you said, a lot of his fights do finish inside the first round. It's a tough fight because, Vandeira is not that good. He's really not. But I guess we got to cut him a little bit of slack. Alexander Romanov took him down 5 times, finished him. Romanov, very good heavyweight, very strong. Romanov is 6'2", weighed in at 262 pounds. And then we see that Spivak took him down 3 times. Spivak, good wrestler. Spivak is 6'3", 260. What's Murzakanov going to weigh in at? And Murzakanov is only 5'10". So 2 different weight classes here. I think that does favor Vandeira, but there's a good chance Murzakanov could come out here and starch Vandeira. But what I will say is Vandeira's chin is very, very good. He's never been knocked out on the feet. Both of his knockout losses were on the ground. Romanov in the second round, and then Spivak in the second round. And my kind of thinking is if Spivak is able to survive a round with a guy like Romanov, if Spivak's able to survive a guy like if Vandeira is able to survive a guy like Spivak, if he can't get this in the second round like he did in those fights, I don't think that Murzakanov is going to have the better cardio than a Romanov or a Spivak there. So yeah, I'm actually really tempted on the dog, and this line is moving very, very fast. Vandeira opened up at plus 285. He's now plus 205. So the line keeps moving and moving. That's on Bet Online, and then on 5 dimes he opened up plus 185. So I think the line is going to continue to move down, especially after people see the weigh-ins. But how do you say it? Murzakanov?
Murzakanov.
Can't keep messing it up. Murzakanov. Yeah, I mean, Murzakanov could starch him early, but if not, if this does get into the second round, what's the fight going to look like? And again, Murzakanov's never seen a third round, so. I'm going to take Vandeira, and I probably will be betting him as long as I can get better than plus 200, which is there now. So I might pull the trigger soon. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 320. The fight goes to decision is plus 240. The under 1.5 rounds, minus 125. The over 1.5 rounds is minus 105. Little bit too juiced for my liking, but yeah, I think it does finish one way or another, whether it is Murzakanov early or whether it is Vandeira late, but I think it does finish.
Yeah, and this is a killer be killed fighter, this Azamat. 3 minutes round 1, 3:47 round 1, 1:35 round 1, 50 seconds round 1, 1 minute round 1, 1:52 round 1, and 20 seconds round 1. So, and 10 seconds round 1. So 8 of these 10 fights are not only finishes, they're round 1 finishes. And he's never even been past the 3 minutes and 47 seconds mark of round 1 when he's finished a fight. So, it's definitely juiced, but, that could be a parlay piece. The fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. And, and then you put in, the massive size advantage, the fact that Vandeira is taking it on short notice. And I've even seen Azamat get dropped. he got dropped in a fight that he won against Sakaev. Sakaev, the first punch that he threw, dropped him right on his ass, Murzakanov. So, yeah, man, this is a great one to finish inside the distance. Consider it a great parlay piece.
Yep. What shocks me is Philippe Lins, that bum, is the same price plus 205 that Vandera is. Isn't that kind of interesting?
Yeah, I don't know who's betting Felipe Lins. Who is betting him? I don't understand that. I don't know who would put their money on this guy at this point. I mean, his fights, I know you have to go back and watch when he was on steroids, but he was on steroids. So who's betting him? I mean, I don't know who the hell that guy is beating. I mean, I guess it's just a way of saying, well, you know what, I'll bet him, and then I could say I was going to be right because there's no way Lins is showing up. And it's exactly what happened.
I think it was more of a fade on Murzakanov, if anything. But yeah, like you mentioned, Lins is not the same fighter. And yeah, he didn't even show up, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Tim saying casinos have been built by Lins bettors. There was money. There was a lot of money coming in on Lins like the last couple of days before it got off. So we'll see what happened here. We'll move on to the next fight, though. We have Claudio Puelles going against Chris Gruetzemacher. Really looking forward to this one. We have Puelles, 25 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Chris Gruetzemacher, 35 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. So Puelles, 10 years younger. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage as well. Puelles has been training at Sanford MMA, I believe, the past 2 fights. So training at a good camp. And as far as Gruetzemacher, says he's training at ATT, but I checked his Instagram, and it looks like he's doing a lot of training at like a garage. So I'm not sure if he's still at ATT. But we take a look at the last few fights. We see that Puelles, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win, knockout loss, submission win over Felipe Silva, a decision win over Marcus Mariano, a decision win over Jordan Levitt just recently. So he took about like a 2-year layoff from the Mariano fight to the Jordan Levitt fight. He was, 23 years old at the time in that Mariano fight. Mariano's not great, but he was able to go out there, take him down, and control him and get a decision there. Prior to that, against Silva, he was getting his ass kicked, and it was probably one of the best comebacks I've seen in a while. He went out there, got his ass kicked for about 2.5 rounds, and ended up getting a submission. And then I believe the Martin Bravo fight, I think he was like 19 years old. It was so long ago, but this guy's made a lot of improvements since then. We see Chris Gruetzemacher, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had a submission loss to Chaz Skelly, a submission loss to Davi Ramos, a knockout win over Joe Lozon, a knockout loss against Alexander Hernandez, and then a decision win over Rafa Garcia. He took a big layoff. I want to say it was like a 2.5-year layoff, something like that, from the Joe Lozon fight all the way to the Alexander Hernandez fight. And then he came back, starched right away. And he looked good in the Garcia fight. He got hurt early on, and the Garcia kind of gassed out. When I take a look at this matchup, I see that it is striker versus grappler. I feel like Puelles is going to want to get this fight down to the mat, and Gruetzemacher is going to want to keep it on the feet. But I think there are some very, very interesting stats in this one, Weezy.
Very interesting. I mean, it's a classic striker versus grappler matchup that you mentioned. You cannot talk about this fight without talking about the huge size advantage here that Puelles is going to have. 10 years younger, 3 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw. And it's Gruetzemacher who has 7 more fights and 50 more minutes in the pro cage, also about 5 more years as a pro. But Puelles, 4 UFC fights, Grit 6. So they've both fought about a similar amount of their careers at the UFC level. It's just Gruetzemacher with 10 more minutes in the UFC cage. Puelles finishing 70% of his 10 wins, 5 by submission, 2 by knockout. And Grits has finished 2/3 of his pro wins, 10 of 15 inside the distance, 3 by submission, 7 by knockout. And when we look at the 6 combined losses for these guys, 4 of those 6 combined losses have come inside the distance here. Puelles knocked out twice, and let's see. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, just knocked out. Knocked out twice, and then Gruetzemacher has been finished in all 3 of his UFC losses and all 4 of his pro losses. So, yeah, both of these guys tend to get finished when they lose fights. And when we look at the striking numbers, we're going to see a big difference here. We got Puelles is only landing 1.76 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 3. He's never knocked anybody down, and he has been knocked down 3 times, or maybe it's only 2. It's only 2 times in 149 significant strikes absorbed. And we see Gruetzemacher is just a massive volume monster here, landing 6.93 significant strikes a minute, only absorbing 5.35. Grits just pushes a pace. That's his best weapon. He constantly marches forward. He throws a ton of volume, and he does rely on his chin, which is pretty good. And he just wears people down. However, he does give up his neck quite a bit, and he is easy to take down, as he's only shown a 61% takedown defense in his UFC career. So, when this fight's standing, I do think that Gruetzemacher will absolutely be winning the entire time the fight is standing. Puelles has got good distance striking. He throws kicks. He's got good length, but that doesn't matter against somebody like Grits. Grits is just going to completely march forward, so your reach advantage really doesn't mean much against him. But it's the good wrestling that Puelles has. 11 of 23 on his takedown attempts, 47% takedown accuracy, 3.35 takedowns per 15 minutes, and 51.5% control time. So this is exactly the kind of fighter that you want to bet on against somebody like Gruetzemacher, who has been controlled for 30% of his UFC career on the ground. He's been taken down 3.52 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's been submitted twice in the UFC. Both times, I believe, by a rear naked choke. And, when you don't protect your neck on the ground, Puelles is the kind of guy who can bring it home with him. And he's also got really good leg locks. But, when we see that Puelles has had problems, Brady, it's with guys who pressure and guys who throw a ton of volume. Guys like Felipe Silva, who absolutely got the best of him on the feet. Guys like Martin Bravo just marched him down and beat the hell out of him and finished him with a body shot. That's something that Grits can do as well. Give me just a second here, man.
You go for it.
Sorry, the COVID lungs, they're still not completely healed here, but and it's Gruetzemacher who's fought the better competition here by a mile. Much better ratio, much more experienced competition. So I would give Gruetzemacher the strength of schedule, the experience, and the striking advantage here, while for Puelles, 10 years younger, 3-inch height advantage, 4-inch reach advantage, a much better wrestler and a much better grappler, and a fantastic control game on the ground. And in addition to that, he finishes fights on the ground. His leg locks are excellent. He got one on the Ultimate Fighter. He got one against Silva, and he is good at them. So, I've seen him go for Kimuras where he looked good, go for rear naked chokes, arm triangles, leg locks. I like Puelles to win this fight because he sells out for the wrestling, and I think he realizes that is his path to victory here. He doesn't want to be standing up against a guy that brings the pressure, pace, and volume that Grits does. But Grits is fairly one-dimensional. He's 10 years older. There's a lot of reasons not to like him here, and I think that this is going to be a grappling match. I think that Puelles has just been fantastic at bringing the fights to where he's most comfortable, and I think if this fight takes place on the ground, that it's going to be Puelles all day.
Yep, I'm with you there. Banana bringing up Gruetzemacher training in his garage. Yeah, I'm on his Instagram now, and I'm very disturbed with what I'm seeing. Somebody that used to train at AT&T, but yeah, the past couple of weeks, it looks like he's training in his driveway. He's training in a garage. He's on the beach with his grandma. He's in North Carolina. And then just recently, he's having a Friendsgiving. Like that's like a Thanksgiving with your friends. So yeah, just more training in a garage. So it looks like he's not at ATT. It looks like he's actually in North Carolina hanging out with his grandma during camp. So as far as Claudio Puelles, he's training with some of the best guys in the world. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to like Puelles here. 1 second. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to like Puelles here. He's going to be the younger guy by not just a couple of years, 10 years. He's going to have the height advantage. He's going to have the reach advantage as well. And I think, yeah, on the feet, it's going to be Gruetzemacher all day. But I think that Puelles, his takedowns are actually solid. He lands 3.35 takedowns per 15 minutes. He has a 47% takedown accuracy. And we see that Gruetzemacher has been taken down multiple times, got taken down twice in his debut, got taken down twice by Chaz Skelly, submitted, got taken down 5 times by Davi Ramos, submitted, got taken down 5 times by Rafa Garcia, controlled for 6 minutes of that fight. And I think if Puelles is able to take him down, he'll be able to control him and possibly even get a submission. So yeah, I think Puelles is something I really do like here, especially at an underdog price tag. I did personally bet him a couple weeks ago. It was I think it was Sunday, the Sunday after last card. I taped it, and I really liked Puelles. He was plus 120. The line has closed a little bit since then. We see Puelles is now plus 100, and then Gruetzemacher is now minus 120. So I kind of expected that line to flip, and maybe it will by fight time. But yeah, I do like Puelles here quite a bit. And like you said, he fights to his strength. He's not going to go out there and test his striking. He's going to get this fight down to the mat. And Gruetzemacher's takedown defense is very, very sus. So yeah, give me Puelles here. I think it could be either a decision or a submission. We see the over 2.5 rounds, minus 185. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 155. The fight goes to decision, minus 175. The fight doesn't go to decision, is plus 135. I'm probably just going to stay away from those time props, but I do like Puelles straight. Anything for you on the fight goes or fight doesn't go, or the line?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like either one of these guys' chances to get the fight done inside the distance. I think Gruetzemacher could knock out Puelles, and I think Puelles could submit Gruetzemacher. So where's the fight doesn't go for this one?
The fight doesn't go is plus 135.
Yeah, I like that at plus money, man. We got 4 combined losses, and let's see, in the UFC, and they've all been inside the distance. Puelles only lost inside the distance by knockout in the UFC, and Grits has been finishing all 3 of his UFC losses. So at plus money for fight doesn't go, I like that a lot here because, like I said, I think either one of these guys can finish. Grit's not great at protecting his neck on the ground, and Puelles is definitely not dealing well with pressure on the feet. And both of these guys bring those things very well. One other thing I wanted to bring up was Chaz Skelly was being trained by Henry Hooft and the boys over at Black Zillions when he fought Grits. So this will be the second time that the coaches over at Sanford have coached somebody against Chris Gruetzemacher. And if Puelles comes out with that same game plan that Skelly did, which was just to go after the wrestling over and over and over again, he should have a lot of success, win this fight. I've already got 1 unit on Puelles at plus 100. I missed the line from where you got it, but I still think there's some value here.
Yep, for sure. Gruetzemacher inside the distance plus 321. Puelles inside the distance plus 345. I'm curious to see what they're going to open up the Claudio submission prop at. That could be something to look at for sure. Gruetzemacher has been submitted in 3 of his 4 losses. But yeah, good fight there. Looking forward to that. And we'll keep moving on to the next fight. We have Alonzo Menefield going against William Knight. Menefield, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach. William Knight, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. We were supposed to see this fight, I think, like a couple months ago. I forget what happened, but it fell off. But we now get it back. And I believe like the odds were really close in that fight, but now we see them a little bit wider in favor of Alonzo Menefield after their last recent performances. But Menefield, he's going to be 1 year older. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage as well. In terms of the last couple fights here, William Knight, he made his debut against Alexa Kamor, won by decision, had a knockout win on the Contender Series as well, had a decision loss to Da-Un Jung, and then had a knockout win over Fabio Charant. As far as Alonzo Menefield, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win over Paul Craig, a win that is aging very, very well, a decision loss to Devin Clark, a knockout loss to OSP, a submission win over Fabio Charant, and then a decision win against Ed Herban. This fight is pretty simple to break down. I mean, if William Knight does not get this fight down to the mat, I think he's going to get knocked out. William Knight has some of the worst striking defense in the UFC, 34%. That is bad. And Alonzo Menefield hits like an absolute truck. So the question I have is Knight going to be able to get down Menefield? If not, it can be a very, very short night for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute there. Yeah, I mean, Knight's going to be the smaller dude. For those of you guys who like seeing a lot of man meat in the cage, man, this is going to be the fight that you're going to want to watch. These guys got muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle. And, we know that Knight likes to wrestle. and get the fight to the ground and work the ground and pound and top game. And we know that Menifield has been facing that kind of an attack ever since he's come into the UFC, because people are scared of Menifield's power. And as a result of that, they want to try to take him down, get him to the ground, and, remove that power from him. So, will Menifield's takedown defense hold up here against William Knight? Well, we've got some statistics to lead us to believe that it will. When we look at the experience numbers, very similar. Menifield's been doing this about 2.5 years longer, but it's actually Knight who has a little more cage time. 3 more UFC level fights for Menifield, but both these guys are great finishers here, man. I mean, we're talking about a 91% finish rate for Menifield, 10 of 11 wins coming inside the distance, and 9 of 10 of Williams Knights have come inside the distance as well, all by knockout for him. Menifield actually does have 2 submissions to his credit. So, yeah, when we talk about 21 wins, 19 of them have come inside the distance, and over 90% combined finish rate for these guys in the wins. And then we see that William Knight has been finished once in his 2 losses, and the same thing for Menifield, once in his 2 losses. They've both been knocked out. So both of these guys could win by knockout, because that's how they both have lost in the past. It's Menifield who's landing more significant strikes than he absorbs here at 4.01 and 3.4. Pretty good power at 0.5% of the significant strikes that he's landing, resulting in a knockdown. And he's been knocked down once in 179 significant strikes absorbed. William Knight also landing more than he absorbs. 0.9 significant strike differential on the positive side. 72.69% striking accuracy for Knight. So even though he doesn't throw a lot of volume, he does connect when he throws. He's accurate. A lot of that is because he does spend a decent amount of time in control time positions for and against. And he's never been knocked down. But like you brought it up, the 34.78% striking defense is just not good. Even though his opponents are only throwing 4 significant strike attempts per minute, they're landing 2.65 of them. 35% striking defense does not add up to longevity at these weight classes, that's for sure. Menifield has gotten 2 of the 8 takedowns that he's attempted, but he has shown 84% takedown defense, successfully defending 16 of 19 takedown attempts against. And even on the 3 takedowns that he has been taken down, only 8.04% control time allowed. So that's about 4 minutes of control time on 19 takedown attempts that Menifield has yielded. So he's been very good at keeping the fight standing, which is what you'd like to see against an opponent like William Knight. Now, Knight is a good wrestler. He's getting over half of the takedowns that he's attempted. He's getting 2.36 per 15 minutes. But the problem is that even though over 50% of William Knight's fights are taking place in control time positions, he's being out-controlled by his opponents at almost a 3-to-1 ratio. That came in the Da Un Jung fight. Da Un Jung took him down over and over again pretty easily and controlled him on the ground. So while Knight is great when he's on top, with Menifield's excellent takedown defense and Knight's ability to be able to be controlled in his own right, you got to believe that Menifield's not only going to have the advantage on the feet here with being the more powerful, longer striker, but that he probably will have an advantage on the ground as well, because if he's stopping these takedown attempts from Knight and potentially even getting on top like he did against Charant, we could see him have success there as well. And then when we look at the strength of schedule stats, it's Menifield who's fought the more experienced competition, beaten the more experienced competition with better win-loss records, and the guys that he's losing to are veterans like Devin Clark and Ovin St. Preux, while we've got, Da Un Jung being the only guy that Knight has lost to, but he's undefeated thus far in the UFC, being 4-0-1. His only, blemish being the draw against Sam Alvey here. So I do like Alonzo Menifield quite a bit in this spot. I'd be interested to see where the line's at, though.
Yep, the line is somewhat close. We see Menafield opened up -135. He's now -175. William Knight opened up +115. He's now +150. I don't know the exact number, but I remember it being a lot closer last time they were going to fight. I think it was like Menafield -120, -130. So yeah, a little bit more of a price tag here, but that's because Menafield has shown a lot of improvements in his last fight. And speaking of those improvements, he lost against Devin Clark. Actually was impressed with a lot of things I saw in that loss. He was able to stuff, I think, like 9 takedowns in that fight. Yeah, Devin Clark was 1 for 10 on takedowns. Showed he had very, very good takedown defense. He did gas out bad though after the first round. Against OSP, it was a really weird fight where Menafield, it looked like he kind of just wanted to maybe save some gas for later in the fight. He didn't really do much in the first, and then it was like late in the second where he started fighting basically and got knocked out, got caught there. His cardio looked a little bit better. He submits Fabio Stront in the first round, and then against Ed Herman, his cardio looked much improved. He was able to go 3 rounds. A lot of people thought that he probably would finish Ed Herman in the first round. He did not. But yeah, he went 3 rounds. He outlanded Ed Herman 42-16 in the second, and then 28-9 in the third. A lot of that being because he hurt Ed Herman's leg really bad, but still, it was nice to see Menafield go into the third round. I guess my worry for this fight is, I go back and I see the Clark fight, and Clark kind of made it a very grinding fight. A lot of hugging Menafield against the cage. Menafield doing a lot of hugging against the cage as well. I guess if Knight comes out here and he kind of grinds Menafield against the cage, makes this a very grinding fight. What is Menafield's cardio going to look like in the second and third round? Because in the Ed Herman fight, there wasn't much wrestling, wasn't much grappling. It was all standing for the most part. I know Menafield took him down once, but it was kind of at Menafield's pace the whole time. And it was a very kind of slow-paced fight, whereas if Knight's able to make this, like a more grinding fight, I'm curious to see if Menafield's, gas tank does hold up. But I don't even think we're going to even have to worry about that. William Knight, his striking defense is atrocious. 34%, very, very hittable. And you do not want to be hittable against a guy that hits as hard as Alonzo Menafield. I think Menafield does knock him out in the first round. But yeah, if this does get extended, I'm really curious to see how Menafield does look, because William Knight, I don't give him a lot of advantages in this fight, but when I do give him is going to be the cardio, because he has proven to go 3 rounds no problem, whereas we have seen a Menafield gas out more often than not. So yeah, I like Menafield with you as well, but instead of like laying the -175, I'm kind of interested in Menafield inside the distance instead, which is +126. I don't mind that. We see that the over is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 rounds is +150. The under 2.5 rounds is -180. Fight goes to decision, +185. Fight doesn't go to decision is -265. I think Alonzo Menafield finishes William Knight probably in that first round. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on any prop, Weezy?
Yeah, I do like Menafield here quite a bit. Like I said, I kind of feel like he could even get the best of the ground game here. And then we talked about the conditioning, and it's always, which one is the one that's trying to get the takedowns. If you think that Knight's going to be the one pushing for takedowns over and over again against the guy who's bigger and stronger than him and has 84% takedown defense, I would suggest that it's probably Knight that gets tired first. So, yeah, I do like Menafield here quite a bit. I think a good way to play it would be inside the distance, because, both of these guys, like I say, 21 combined wins, 19 of those combined 21 wins have been inside the distance. So, yeah, whichever one of these guys you think wins the fight, they probably win it inside the distance. But, yeah, I do like Menafield inside the distance here, though.
Yep, looks like we are on the same page there. We'll keep moving on to the next fight. And we have Mallory Martin going against Cheyanne Vlismas. We have Mallory Martin, 27 years old, 5'4" with a 63-inch reach. Cheyanne Vlismas, she is 26 years old, 5'3" with a 63-inch reach. So Vlismas is going to be 1 year younger, have a 1-inch height disadvantage, and then same reach there. We take a look at their last few fights. Mallory Martin is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. I believe she made her UFC debut against Verna Jandaroba, which is a very tough debut, very tough fight there. She got submitted, won her next fight against Hannah Cifers by submission, a fight where she battled a ton of adversity. She got basically 10-8'd just about against Hannah Cifers. Cifers was like 1 second away from finishing her. Cifers did slow down as the fight went on. Martin was able to take her down and finish her shortly after. And then she gets submitted by Pauliana Viana. I think it was like an armbar from guard, which I think I called that a while back. So Yeah, Martin, she looks like 1-2 in the UFC, but solid competition there. As far as Cheyanne Vlismas, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Made her UFC debut against Montserrat Ruiz as like a big favorite. I think she was like minus 350. She got controlled for 10 minutes of that fight, lost the decision there. She comes back in a big way, knocks out Gloria DePaula, beautiful head kick, and then finishes her on the mat there. She is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. So yeah, a fight that I'm not all that interested in, especially after seeing the line, but a fight that, could be somewhat exciting. I think both these fighters are somewhat exciting. So what do you got for this one?
Yeah, there's not much in terms of stats to hang your hat on here. I mean, in terms of the tail of the tape, they're almost identical. In terms of experience, Martin, 3 more fights, 15 more minutes in the cage, 1 more year as a pro, and that's about it. Neither one of these girls are great finishers. Mallory Martin, a 58% finish rate. Vlismas, only 33% finish rate. In their 6 combined losses, only 2 of them have come inside the distance, and Martin has been subbed in her 2 finished losses, but Cheyanne has never subbed anybody. So, this fight probably goes to decision. When we look at the striking numbers, Mallory Martin lands 3.99, but absorbs 5.53. A pretty good striking accuracy at almost 60% for Mallory, and a 58.5% striking defense. She's been knocked down once in 172 significant strikes absorbed. Vlismas's striking number is much more impressive as she lands 4.32, but only absorbs 1.77. So really good 64% striking defense for Vlismas. 54.5% striking accuracy, and she's gotten 1 knockdown and 134 significant strikes landed. So yeah, definitely would give Vlismas the advantage here on the feet. When we look at the grappling numbers, it's Martin who's thrown a lot of takedown attempts out there. 7 for 11 on her takedown attempts, 63% takedown accuracy. She's gotten 14% control time and been controlled about 17% of the time. However, she has fought Virna Jandiroba, and that just did not go well for her. Vlismas has shown 60% takedown defense in her own right. Both of these girls have been taken down and been controlled, but it's Martin's fights that have been taking place at striking range about 70% of the time. But for Vlismas, it's only been about 35% of the time that her fights have been taking place. Very Vlismas. I love it. That got me off. Now I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah. So if we look at the strength to schedule numbers, neither one of these ladies has really beaten anybody impressive yet. Hannah Cipher is the best win for either of these ladies. Mallory Martin beat some Instagram model in her the Contender Series fight, and then went on to fight Virna Jandiroba and Polyana Viana and be submitted by both of them. This is kind of low level, dude. I don't really know what to think of this, but I just haven't been that impressed yet by Mallory Martin. She seems a little bit crazy. Like she was yelling something like she when she got her win prior to the Contender Series, like she just seemed absolutely nuts. She was screaming something like about nothing can save you, and while she was pounding this girl out, so I think when she got that win over Ashley Nichols, people thought that she was going to be special, but we just haven't seen much. The Cyphers win, she just showed toughness, but man, she was very close to being the only person that Cyphers beat. So not really liking Mallory Martin here, but with Vlismas, I just don't know what to think. And I think it's Vlismas who's taking the fight on short notice because Martin had another opponent, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I'm going with Vlismas here, but I don't think I'm going to be putting my money anywhere near this one. This feels like a 1-800-GAMBLER fight. What are you seeing in this one?
Yeah, I mean, who cares about this fight, right? I mean, I'm not too interested in it, but what I am interested in is bringing up this gem of a comment by Dan. If Cheyanne loses, it won't be much of a Mary Vlismas in the Bay's house this year. That is beautiful, Dan. Really good. Looks like JP and there's a lot of rumors going around, like they broke up, they got a divorce, whatever. A lot of rumors going around. I'm not 100% sure what happened, but It is Cheyanne Vlismas as of now. I went through her Instagram, did some Instagram research, and there was no sign of JB Bays for like a while. So don't know what's going on, but as far as this fight goes, I'm with you. I like Vlismas, but just taking a look at the line, like there is no way I would ever lay, minus, what is she? Minus 200 just about on Cheyanne Vlismas, minus 200 there. I can't even find it. There's one book, some books have Cheyanne Vlismas, and one book has Cheyanne Bays. So I'm trying to find. There it is. So yeah, opened up minus 220. She's now minus 180, and then Martin opened up plus 185. She's now plus 155. We see that the over is 2.5 minus 260, under plus 200. Fight goes minus 245. Fight doesn't go is plus 175. If anything, I might take a look at the under, but it probably does go to decision more often than not. I do want to take a look at more of these comments. Big Steve, shout out to you for the dono. Weezy loves the M meat. Do you know what that means?
I think it was because I had mentioned that there was going to be a lot of man meat in the cage in the Knight Menafield one. So yeah, I absolutely deserve that one, Big Steve. I'm not a big fan of man meat, if I'm being honest with you, man. It's more women meat for me. But anyway, it looks like a couple of, especially with that William Knight Tapology picture. I mean, you get the feeling that this could be like a couple of dudes who will be on the stage at Chippendales here when you look at them. But yeah, man, that's Big Steve. Shout out to you, man, for the donation. Thank you.
Shout out to Big Steve in the chat. Robot Chicken Mallory was getting her ass kicked by Cyphers. Yeah, that is very concerning. Come on now, pick Martin if you want. Jack Attack saying, I just don't think Vlismas presents a sub threat at all. So if Martin gets the grappling going, it should be her all day long. Yeah, if Martin gets her down to the mat, like Martin's a brown belt in BJJ. She has been submitted in both of her UFC losses, but Pauliana Viana, good grappler. Ferna Jandaroba, phenomenal grappler. So no shame in that. Yeah, I guess this is the big question, Weezy. Can Martin do a scarf hold? And for what I've seen, the answer to that is not really. I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I can't believe that worked. I mean, like that barely even works in judo when your opponent's wearing a gi. So, but every once in a while you will see people, use that scarf hold, and you could get a Kesikatame arm lock from there. There's a couple of things you could do from there, but yeah, I don't think we're going to see Mallory Martin going for that throw. It's the easiest way to get your back taken. I don't know how Ruiz got that over and over again, man, because we got to hope she learned from that.
Yeah, that was weird. I'll follow you home, bitch. He's talking about, I think Cheyanne Bays said that the Ruiz or the other way around.
Yeah. So I guess they're both kind of crazy, aren't they?
Yeah, it's gonna be a solid fight. Both these fighters are exciting. It's maybe not high level, but it's exciting.
It should be a good one. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be putting my money anywhere near it, but it could be a really fun fight.
Yep, it could be for sure. But yeah, hopefully it is going to be a Mary Vlismas. Let's move on to the next fight. And we have, if I can pull it up. There we go. Okay, Jake Matthews, Jeremiah Wells. Jake Matthews, 27 years old, 5'11", 73-inch reach. Jeremiah Wells, 35 years old, 5'9", with a 75-inch reach. Wells going to be the much older fighter by 8 years. He's going to have a 2-inch height disadvantage, but a 2-inch reach advantage here. And he is training out of Renzo Gracie, Philly. A lot of people are very high on those guys. We saw Sean Brady and Pat Sabatini, both of them get very good wins last time. This is a guy that trains with, guys like Sean Brady, guys like that. Jeremiah Wells is also a black belt in BJJ for what it's worth. Lots of submissions on his record. He's a very, very dangerous and exciting guy. And we saw how dangerous he was in his UFC debut when he went out there and knocked out Worley Alves, which, yeah, great win there. Against a guy like Worley Alves, who is very dangerous in his own right. And, went back and watched some Jeremiah Wells fights. For the most part, he starts out very fast. He wants to get in there and get out, has a ton of power in his hands. He's very strong. I've never seen him taken down. His takedown defense looks good. His wrestling looks really good. His ground game is obviously good. He's a black belt. There have been some fights. I think it was the Vince's fight there when he lost by decision. I want to say he landed like 20 strikes in that fight. It was a 5-round fight. He threw nothing in that fight, but that was like the only instance where he really didn't do anything. But yeah, against Worley Alves, he came out hot. He was able to get Worley Alves down right away. He looked good in that fight. It wasn't like a fluke knockout. He went out there and he beat him pretty handily there and knocked him out in the second round. But yeah, he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. As far as Jake Matthews, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a submission loss to Anthony Rocca Martin, a decision win over Rostam Akhman, a decision win over Emil Meek, a decision win over Diego Sanchez, and a submission loss to Sean Brady. And what's interesting, like I said, Jeremiah Wells and Sean Brady do train together at the same camp, and that was Jake Matthews' last opponent. So Jeremiah Wells should be coming in here with a really solid game plan. Obviously, Matthews has fought the much better competition, and it's really not even close. He's fought in the UFC much, much longer. It's not even close. But, Wells is somebody that can go out there and maybe pull off an upset. This guy's very dangerous. Anywhere the fight goes, on the feet, on the mat, it's very, very hard. Good wrestling, good takedown defense. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Wells, but Jake Matthews is going to have the experience advantage here, and that does kind of scare me a little bit. But, yeah, really curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, man. So Matthews going to be younger here by 8 years, 2 inches taller. It's Wells who has the 2-inch reach advantage. But Jake Matthews, 10 more professional fights and 14 more fights at the UFC level. We've got 1 UFC level fight in 12 career fights for Wells, while it's 15 UFC level fights for Matthews here and 22 pro fights. So Matthews, another guy that we've seen grow up before our eyes here. Started off on The Ultimate Fighter. I believe when he was in the house, he was around 20 years old, maybe even 19. So, yeah, Matthews is damn good. He's a well-rounded mixed martial artist who's been fighting the top competition for a very long time here. We got a 65% finish rate for Matthews here as a pro and a 77% finish rate for Jeremiah Wells as a pro. Matthews has been finishing 4 of his 5 pro losses, and Wells has never been finished. So Matthews landing 3 significant strikes a minute, absorbing about 2.16. He's 45% accurate in the striking. He's got, it looks like 4 UFC knockdowns in 15 UFC fights, landing a knockdown on 0.77% of the total significant strikes that he's landed, averaging 0.35 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And really nice striking defense up at 62%. And the guy with the worst striking defense in my entire database of over 615 fighters is going to be Jeremiah Wells. But, I mean, obviously it doesn't really mean anything. It's a 1-fight sample size. But, yeah, 11% striking defense. That's really bad. He absorbed 15 out of the 17 strikes that were thrown at him. I mean, that's hard to do. But, we're going to see how this next fight takes place. Jake Matthews has done really well with the grappling, a 41% takedown accuracy, almost 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. He outcontrols his opponents at about a 2-to-1 ratio, 30% control time for, only 16% control time against. He's being taken down less than 1 time per 15 minutes. And it's obviously him who's fought the better brand of competition here, as Matthews has had 15 UFC fights while Jeremiah Wells has only had 1. So, Matthews should be the more experienced fighter, the better strength of schedule here. Wells will have that 2-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys are equal opportunity finishers. It's just, will Matthews, where do you think Matthews wants this fight, Brady? Because, you mentioned that Wells does have good takedown defense. So my question to you is let's say that Matthews isn't able to take down Wells. Do you think that this is a very close fight on the feet if that happens?
Yeah, I do, because I think Jake Matthews is probably the better technical striker, but Wells says fuck technique and just runs at his opponents and throws bombs. Like, I've seen him do like this. He jumps and runs into his opponents. It's not technical at all, but he hits very, very hard. So yeah, if it's on the feet, it's going to be very, very close. Because Matthews, he's not the best striker in his own right, but he's probably more technical. But Wells, I gotta say, Wells has probably a lot more power than him.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, because we have seen Jake Matthews land 4 knockdowns in 15 fights, it's not bad, but, you're not really known for your power when you're doing that. And like we say, here's Wells, who's, gotten 1 knockdown in 21 significant strikes landed. That's almost a 5%, knockdown ratio there. That's a lot of power. However, we're going to need to see Jeremiah Wells start to move his head and maybe keep his hands up a little bit, because you don't want to be absorbing strikes at an 89% ratio in the UFC. It doesn't matter who you're fighting, man. That is a bad recipe for longevity in this sport. So, I really want to see Jeremiah Wells start to move his head a little bit, start to keep his hands up, maybe move his feet a little bit more, because, you don't want to be getting hit by guys like Jake Matthews over and over again. This is a good one, man. I don't really see much in the way of angles in terms of whether this fight goes to decision or not, because even though Matthews has been finished in 4 of his 5 losses and Wells has been a good finisher in his own right, we don't really know what we're going to see from Wells in terms of when he's fighting somebody as experienced and well-traveled as Jake Matthews here. So which way are you leaning on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we take a look at the odds, like on paper, and after digging into it, especially, this seems like a really, really close fight, and the odds do not reflect that. Jake Matthews opened up -150. He's now -185. Jeremiah Wells opened up +130. He's now +160. So, yeah, I think it's going to be dog or pass for me. Yeah, you mentioned that 11% strike and defense. I went back and watched that fight, and then I saw the 11% strike and defense. It didn't really look like that. But yeah, I guess he absorbed a ton of punches and pretty much everything that Warley Alves threw. It did land, but yeah, it's a very close fight on the feet. Like I said, Matthews is more technical, but Wells is going to hit harder. Wells is going to blitz forward, throw bombs, and then I'm curious to see, who's going to get the better. Who's going to get the better of the other in the grappling exchanges, because both guys are black belts. I do give probably the strength advantage to Jeremiah Wells, but Matthews is a good grappler in his own right. We do see, though, Matthews has a 66% takedown defense. He got taken down by Sean Brady and submitted. He got taken down. He didn't get taken down in the Rocco Martin fight, I don't think, but he did get submitted in that fight as well. He got taken down in the Holbrook fight 2 times. Got taken down by Kevin Lee, Johnny Case. He got taken down in a couple other fights as well. So he has been taken down before. I'm just curious to see how this fight looks if it does hit the mat, like who has the grappling advantage. I think it's really close. This fight's really close. You got the experience of Jake Matthews. You have the power, the explosiveness of Jeremiah Wells. You also have him training at Renzo Gracie Philly, who all those guys seem to be on a roll. Black belt and BJJ. It's a close fight. It's a very close fight. So yeah, I don't really understand this line. So yeah, if I had to pick, I guess I'll go Wells for the win. And from a betting perspective, it would be dog or pass. But yeah, I guess you could say Matthews probably should be the favorite. He's more experienced. He's fought the better competition. He's been in the UFC longer, but I feel like Wells has everything it takes to pull the upset here. The fight doesn't go to decision, -115. The fight goes to decision, -125. I kind of feel like if Matthews wins, it's by decision, which is +145. And I kind of feel like if Wells wins, it could be by decision. I'm personally picking him by decision, or it could be inside the distance as well. Wells by decision, +500. Wells inside the distance is +260. So any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes, fight doesn't go, anything like that?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Where Wells is a big underdog here, and then you look at you would think that it'd be more likely that they think that he would finish by decision, but they got him out there twice as good of odds for him to finish inside the distance than not. And I mean, when you look at the guys that are finishing Jake Matthews, I mean, like being subbed by Sean Brady, by Anthony Rocco Martin, those are high level grapplers. And Anthony Rocco Martin pulling a high-level move, pissing on the casino floor, and then knocking out a security guard. I mean, there is no shame in losing to somebody that big of a baller. So, this is going to be a good one, man. This is a big step up for Jeremiah Wells here. And, I'm interested to see how he handles it here, because he's going to have to show a little bit better striking defense. He's going to have to show that well-rounded mixed martial arts game that he does have here. And, I'm interested for this one, man. I think it's going to be a great fight.
Oh yeah, going to be a great one indeed. We'll keep moving on. We have Manel Kape going against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. We have Kape. He is 28 years old, 5'5", with a 68-inch reach. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, 33 years old, 5'4", with a 66-inch reach. So Zhalgas, he's going to be 5 years older, a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage there. Manel Kape, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a decision loss against Alexander Pantoja, had a decision loss against Mateus Nicolau, and then just recently had a knockout win over Ode Osborne. As far as Zhalgas Zhumagulov, made his UFC debut against Raulian Paiva, lost a very close decision there. He lost a decision to Amir Albazi, and just recently beat Jerome Rivera. So what I noticed right off the bat is, Manel Kape's facing the much better competition. Guys like Pantoja, guys like Nicolau, some of the best guys in the division. And Zhalgas' only win in the UFC is against Jerome Rivera. He does have a win outside of the UFC against Tagir Ulanbekov. I personally thought Ulanbekov won that, though. This is an interesting fight. I think Manel Kape is the much better fighter here. I think he's the much more well-rounded fighter as well. Solid wrestling. I believe he's a brown belt in BJJ. Solid takedown defense, great get-up game, all that good stuff. His striking's amazing. The only problem I have with Kape is this guy needs to let his hands go more. Like, he's having, very close fights with good guys like a Pantoja. If he would have just let his hands go a little bit more, he probably would have won that fight. Same thing with Nicolau. If he would have let his hands go a little bit more, he would have won that fight. And then he knocks out Udi Osborne, which up until the knockout was a very close fight because he's low volume. It looked a little bit better in the Osborne fight, but still, if this guy would just let his hands go, I think he could be a huge problem, and he is a huge problem. This guy's a finisher, a 94% finish rate. I think there's a good chance he could get a finish in this fight, but if he does not finish Zhalgas, how does this fight look? It probably could play out close since he is so volume, and Zhalgas is no bum. So, interesting fight. I like Kape quite a bit, but the volume kind of concerns me a little bit, Weezy.
Yeah, me too, man. And can we please start a petition to let Kape wear shoes in the UFC? I really think it would be a great thing. Everybody likes nostalgia, and I love watching mixed martial arts wear high top sneakers in the cage. And we know that Manel Kape has looked a lot better when he has been wearing those shoes than when he hasn't been. Evidently, he's got a foot sweat problem that doesn't allow him to be able to, get good traction in the cage. And maybe that's the reason he doesn't throw as much. But and then we look at guys like Zhumagulov here, who was fighting better competition before he got into the UFC than when he was fighting in the UFC. He's fighting Ulanbekov and Bogatinov before he gets here, and then it's Paiva Albazi and Jerome Rivera. So Kape, 3 more professional fights, about 2.5 more years as a pro, but it's Zhumagulov who's got 113 more minutes in the cage as a pro. So Zhumagulov is a decisionator, while Kape is a finisher. A 5.48 minute average fight time for Manel Kape. Dude is an excellent finisher. Both of these guys have 3 UFC fights. The average fight time almost identical for them. It's Kape who, as a pro, has a 94% finish rate. So 15 of his 16 wins coming inside the distance. And Zhumagulov, a 57% finish rate. So 8 of his 14 wins coming inside the distance. Manel Kape has been finished by submission twice, and Zhalgas Zhumagulov has been knocked out once in his 5 losses. Kape is absorbing more than he lands, which isn't surprising because he doesn't throw that much. He's getting outlanded by about 0.5 strikes per minute, which is about how much he's getting outthrown by. So, and then it's Zhumagulov who's landing a little bit more than he absorbs, but he's showing better striking defense and just a little bit better striking accuracy. And then when we look at the grappling stats, Kape has gotten 2 takedowns in 3 fights. He's attempted 7, but it's about 89% of his fights are taking place at striking range, while for Zhumagulov, it's about 83% of his fights are taking place at striking range. So even though both of these guys have shot a decent amount of takedowns and have been taken down twice in their 3 UFC fights, I think that we will see this be more of a striking match. Because Kape is well-rounded and because he's more powerful, I think you really take a chance when you try to close the distance against him and try to wrestle against him. We didn't really see much of it. And plus, the guy is showing 80% takedown defense in his own right, which is very good. While Zhumagulov has been taken down twice in the 4 times that he's been attempted to take down, and he's given up about 4 times as much time, control time on the ground as he's gotten, as he gets 3.54% control time, but gets controlled about 13.5% of the time. So he's getting out-controlled at almost a 4-to-1 ratio. And we do know that Kape does like to win some minutes on the ground every once in a while. So I think both of these guys are well-rounded. I think both of these guys, I think this should be a pretty close fight, actually. It's just Kape who's obviously the more explosive fighter here at being the way better finisher. And we know that Zhumagulov is a little bit more likely to be the one to slow down the pace of a fight. That's exactly what he tried to do against Ulanbekov, and just wasn't that successful doing it. But he got a hometown decision there in Kazakhstan against Ulanbekov. And it's Kape who's faced the better UFC level of competition here. So 3 more fights as a pro for Kape, better finishing rate, more explosive, and he's also well-rounded like Zhumagulov. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like Manel Kape in this spot. How about you?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Melon brings up a good point. Manel Kape did miss weight last fight against Ode Osborne, which was weird because I think that was Ode Osborne, like one of his very first fights at 125. I thought it would be Osborne potentially missing weight, but it was Manel Kape that missed weight. So we'll have to see the weigh-ins there. But yeah, I think Kape gets it done. But man, I mean, this line is just kind of nuts. Manel Kape opened up minus 260, he's now minus 220. Zhalgas Zhumagulov opened up plus 220, is now plus 185. I think it's nuts because if Kape does not finish this fight, what's it going to look like? I feel like it's going to be very competitive. So if I was to bet Kape, it probably would be inside the distance. This guy has a 94% finish rate, but looks like the bookmakers are all over it. Plus 172. The under 2.5 rounds is kind of interesting. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 160. The only problem with that, I think if Zhalgas wins, I think it's by decision. So yeah, I like Kape here, but the price tag is really, really scaring me away.
Yeah, and I like it when fighters finish, and when we got 15 of 16 wins coming inside the distance for Kape, it's almost impossible to ignore. But on the other side of that, we have 11 combined losses between these guys, and only 3 of them have been inside the distance. It's like a 28% implied probability that, if you handicap the fight goes to decision based on that implied probability, you'd be looking at fight goes to decision here at about minus 250 or something like that. So very interesting. I think there's actually some value on the over here because Zhumagulov has only been finished in 1 of 5 losses, and Kape has been finished in 2 of 6 losses, but they were submissions. And, Zhumagulov's not much of a submission artist, even though he did get that submission win against Rivera. He's not much of a finisher. So that could be an interesting way to play it. And the fight goes to decision is where for this fight?
Minus 145.
Oh, it's minus money? I thought you might even be getting plus money because Kape is such a good finisher, but maybe not. Maybe, yeah. I mean, if it's minus money, then maybe not. But yeah, this should be a good one, man. I think this line is a little bit wide, but I still do think the Kape's got more ways to win this fight.
Yeah, I'll agree with you as well. Tim asking, what are the split decision prop numbers? There are no props out for split decisions yet, but we do see that Kape by decision plus 168. Zhalgas by decision is plus 315. But yeah, interesting fight there. That should be a good one for sure. We'll move on to the next fight, though. We have Maki Bitolo going against Dusko Todorovic. This is probably a loser leaves the UFC matchup. 2 guys that I'm not too crazy about, but going against each other here should be fun in some type of way there. But we have Maki Bitolo, 30 years old, 5'10", 75-inch reach. Dusko Todorovic, 27 years old, 6'1", 74-inch reach. So Maki's going to be 3 years older. Maki's going to be at a 3-inch height disadvantage, and Maki's going to be at a 1-inch height disadvantage as well. So the tail of tape definitely goes to Dusko here. But take a look at their last few fights. Maki Bitolo has had a tough run in the UFC, 1-4 in his last 5 fights, made his debut, I believe, against Colin Potter, a fight that I and a lot of people thought that he'd go out there and starch this guy. That was not the case. Colin Potter beats him by decision. Definitely not a good look there, but he does bounce back and he knocks out Charles Byrd. After that, he loses to Darren Stewart, and it's not concerning that he lost to him. It's kind of concerning how it happened. He gave Darren Stewart his very first submission win. So that was definitely not a good look. And then he loses to Impa by decision. No shame in that, really. And then he gets submitted by Julian Marquez in a fight where he came out very hot. He looked phenomenal for about 12 and a half minutes of that fight. He starts to slow down and gets submitted late in that 3rd round. But yeah, he looked good for a while, but the gas tank did not hold up there. So he's definitely somebody that is fighting for his job. And I feel like in that Marquez fight, I feel like he was really fighting for his job in that fight, but he got caught late against Marquez. But yeah, he was winning that fight up until he got submitted. As far as Dusko, he made his UFC debut against Daquan Townsend, knocked him out. He won a decision against Teddy Ash on the Contender Series as well. After that, gets knocked out by Punahele Soriano, and then after that loses to Gregory Rodriguez. So it looks like a lot of the hype has died down on Dusko. This was somebody that a lot of people were really high on, and I never really understood why. I mean, this guy has some of the worst striking defense you'll ever see. I mean, the Punahele Soriano fight was very concerning. He got dropped, like, I know it says he got dropped like 2 times, but it was more like 4 or 5 times he got dropped. And he got dropped. He was able to get back up, and he kept his hands down. He still would not have his hands up. Like, he fights with his hands down. He relies a lot on head movement, has that tall man's defense where he's kind of, chin up in the air, backing his head up. And Punahele Soriano caught him multiple times. And then in the Rodriguez fight, his striking defense did not look much better. So two guys here who are very untrustworthy. You have Maki Pitolo, cardio issues, losses to guys like Colin Potter, guys like that. And then you have Dusko, cardio issues, no chin, no striking defense. This is a very tough fight to call because, I'm not high on either of these guys, Weezy. So help me out here. What are you looking at for this fight?
Yeah, Tim Troiano said it in the chat that this is a 1-800 gambler fight, and it really does feel like one. I mean, both of these guys have got massive holes in their game. The striking defense of Todorovic is atrocious. And then you got a guy like Pitolo, who's actually shown some decent wrestling up here at 185 and the ability to be able to control his opponents on the ground. He hits hard. Both of these guys hit hard. It's just hard to find a reason to bet either one of these guys here. Pitolo's got the experience advantage. He's got 9 more professional fights. He's got 100 more minutes of cage time, almost 3 more years as a pro, and 2 more UFC level fights. Both of these guys are good finishers. Todorovic, 90% finish rate overall. Pitolo, 77% finish rate overall. And these guys do get finished in their losses too, as Todorovic has been knocked out once in his 2 losses, and Pitolo has been finished in 6 of his 8 losses, 4 by submission, 2 by knockout. So in the combined 10 losses between these guys, we've seen 7 of them finish inside the distance. Both of these guys are landing more significant strikes than they absorb, which is kind of weird, seeing as Todorovic, I mean, he gets hit a ton. So the fact that he's actually landed more is pretty impressive. And yeah, I mean, this is a hard one, dude. It's probably Pitolo who hits harder here, and Todorovic has certainly been knocked down a lot. So you could see Pitolo, getting the better of it on the feet. And then when you look at the grappling numbers, Todorovic really was only trying takedowns in the Teddy Ash fight. I think he got Townsend down, but I don't remember whether he knocked him down or took him down.
He took him down and finished him.
Okay. So the one takedown that Todorovic has resulted in a submission win then, didn't it?
Yep.
Oh, well, it was a knockout win.
Knockout, yep.
Yeah, it was a knockout win, but either way, he got it to the ground and finished it there. So, yeah, which one of these guys has the better ground game? As Todorovic only has 50% takedown defense, Pitolo 55% takedown defense. At least Pitolo has been submitted in 4 of his 8 losses, so maybe it is Todorovic who has the better ground game here. But I would say it's probably Pitolo who will be better on the feet. And then if we look at the strength of schedule, I guess it's Pitolo who's fought the better competition, but not by much. Both of these guys are fighting losing competition, so it's just screaming 1-800 gambler for me. I'm really not seeing much in the way of angles here. Help me out.
That's the big question: is which of these guys is less of a bum? And if you can answer that question, you can figure out who wins the fight, right?
I guess so, man. But they're both pretty bummy.
Yeah.
At least Pitolo, I really thought that Pitolo was going to beat Marquez. That it feels like Marquez got really lucky in that spot. Really lucky. Because Pitolo was kind of controlling that fight. He just got caught. I don't know if Todorovic has that kind of a submission game, where he can catch somebody that late in the fight, Yeah, I'm probably going to go with Maki here, actually.
Yep, understandable. Shout out to Tiffany. Appreciate you too. Appreciate you, Tiffany, for the dono. Appreciate you hanging out. And then Tiffany also says, late arrival. Weezy, I hope you are feeling okay. Feeling good, Weezy?
Much better, dude. Yeah, I got a ton of sleep this week. You know, it really kind of knocked me out for the first 3-4 days. But yeah, the immune system has handled it well. Feeling a lot better, man. And it's just good to be back to work here and doing stat tickers again.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, Weezy. I have the 1-800 Gambler up on the screen. I am very, very tempted on betting Maki Batolo as an underdog. I mean, this price tag, it just doesn't make sense. I feel like this should be a straight up pick 'em at the very least. We see that Dusko opened up as a minus 235 favorite. He's now minus 170. Maki opened up plus 200. He's now plus 145. I mean, we take a look at it. I mean, at least Maki Batolo has shown better striking numbers, a better striking defense at 56%. His striking defense isn't phenomenal, but he doesn't block punches with his face like Dusko, 48% striking defense. I give the volume advantage to Dusko, but the striking advantage goes to Batolo. The power probably goes to Batolo. The chin, the toughness, definitely to Patolo. The ground game, I mean, I think Dusko's the better grappler. He is a black belt, but he has a 5% takedown accuracy. So is he going to be able to take down Maki Batolo? On the flip side, could Maki Batolo take down Dusko? Potentially. Dusko has shown a 50% takedown defense. And a good get-up game, though. So I think this does primarily play outstanding. If it does play outstanding, this is going to be a very, very close fight. Very close fight. Yeah, I like Patolo here as well. You might need to get the orderlies ready because I'm kind of tempted on the plus money on Patolo here. We see that the fight goes to decision fight goes to decision plus 140. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 180. Todorovic wins inside the distance plus 150. Patolo inside the distance plus 255. I'm leaning Patolo, I guess, inside the distance, but I could see a decision as well. But yeah, I do like Patolo, and I'm kind of tempted on him, but it's really hard to bet on Patolo after watching him lose to Colin Potter.
These guys are fun to watch fight. They both hit hard. They're both reasonably well-rounded for the weight class. And they're both young. I mean, Patolo's 30. Dusko's only 27. Dusko had that great win over Michel Pereira before he got into the UFC. There's reasons to like both of these guys. It's just that, when with them facing off against each other, I just don't see any angles here, but also at the same time, it just feels like this line is too wide. I mean, after these last two performances by Dusko, I don't know how you lay minus 170, especially against somebody in Patolo who was this close to beating Marquez. And that was a big upset. That was going to be a big upset. Everyone was on Marquez that day. And he had a really good performance there. He just got caught at the end.
Yeah, I want to say he won like like almost every single minute of that fight up until like the third round. It started slowing down a little bit, but yeah, the first two rounds was Patolo all day. In the first round, got a takedown, 4 minutes and 24 seconds of control time. The second round got three takedowns, 3 minutes and 2 seconds of control time, and then in the third round, he slowed down a little bit. So yeah, it's a tough fight to call, but like Chris is saying, like in a fight that you feel is 50-50. Nothing wrong with playing the dog at plus 145, plus 150, right?
I agree completely, and like the thing is about that Marquez fight, this guy, he did things that we didn't expect. I mean, Patolo is a guy who's been submitted in a lot of his losses. He was looked at as a guy that had no wrestling and no ground game. I remember in the Darren Stewart fight, people were just saying, oh, this is going to be easy for Stewart. All he's got to do is go get a couple of takedowns. And then it wound up being Patolo who was the one who was getting the takedowns. And then he got caught. But, he's actually finding ways to win minutes with his wrestling here. And that's pretty alarming against a guy like Dusko who's, only stopped 3 of 6 takedowns, and has shown the ability to be controlled just a little bit. So, yeah, I'll probably take the plus money here on Patolo as a pick, but I don't know if I'm going to get to a bet, man. It's hard to trust either one of these guys with your money.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to bet it as well. I don't know if I want to go to the asylum with Dan there in the chat, but yeah, I mean, I would rather bet on the plus 150 bum than the minus 170 bum, right?
I kind of tend to agree with you there, man. It's a bum fight. I'd rather get the plus money.
For sure. So it looks like we are both on the same page. Don't know if I'll pull the trigger, but I am tempted there. So we'll move on to the next fight. We have a very fun fight. We have Brendan Allen going against Chris Curtis. I think this is like Allen's like second or third. I think third different opponent. Chris Curtis stepping in on short notice. Brendan Allen was supposed to fight. Forget who the first guy was, but he was supposed to fight Delidze. Was able to tape that fight, and then all of a sudden Chris Curtis steps in, which is good. I'm glad to see this fight. I think it's gonna be a good one. Brendan Allen, very young guy, 25 years old. He's 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. He's going to be 9 years younger. He's going to have a 4-inch height advantage. The reach is the same. Brendan Allen has been training at Sanford MMA. He's been showing like leaps and bounds in terms of his improvements in the striking, and he showed that in the Soriano fight. And he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Tom Breeze. Prior to that, he made his UFC debut against Kevin Holland, finished him in the second round by submission. Had a decision win over Kyle Dawkins, a knockout loss to Sean Strickland, a submission win over Carl Roberson, and a decision win over Punahele Soriano. Yeah, I was on Soriano in that fight, and I kind of thought that Brendan Allen would try to get it down to the mat, but I think he attempted maybe one takedown in that fight, and he was content to just outstrike Soriano for 3 rounds, and that's just what he did. So yeah, showed great improvements in his striking, showed a great shin as well. As far as Chris Curtis, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights on a nice little win streak here. He made his UFC debut on short notice against, I think it was short notice, against Phil Hawes, and won by knockout, a fight where he was getting picked apart pretty handily the first couple minutes, and then he clips Phil Hawes. Very good win there. Phil Hawes, I want to say, was like minus 330 around there. So yeah, good fight. Looking forward to this one. I want to say striker versus grappler, but Brendan Allen's striking's looked much improved. So what do you think about this one, Weezy?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that, we think of Allen as a grappler, but, he really has kind of fallen in love with his hands, and he's been training at Sanford. He's been getting the kind of training that young fighters need in order to round out their game. And Brendan Allen is only 25 years old. So, I don't like it when grapplers fall in love with their hands. It pisses me off most of the time. But, Brendan Allen, he's too young in his career to just call this guy a grappler at this point. He's still only 25 years old, but he has 21 professional fights already. And, when you go back and you look at the pre-UFC tape on Brendan Allen, this guy was fighting some really good pre-UFC competition. He's fighting Trevin Giles, fighting some really good guys before he even got to the UFC. So, and then you got a guy like the Action Man and Chris Curtis, and there's a lot to like here too. I heard Cody Safdie tell a story that was just amazing. This guy Curtis will fight anywhere, anytime, any place. He doesn't care. He loves to fight, and evidently he'll take any fight anytime. And there's been one fight that he turned down in his entire career, and they offered him the Greek Canadian guy. What the hell is his name? Elias Theodorou, right? And Curtis turned down that fight because he said, "I want to fight. I don't want to be hugged for 15 minutes." That's the only time he's ever turned down a fight. So I get the feeling that this guy Curtis will be the guy that the UFC calls whenever they need somebody on 7 days notice. And whether it's at 170, 185, or even 205, this guy Curtis will pick up the phone every time you call him and ask him if he wants to fight. And now he's got Brendan Allen. He's 9 years older. He's 4 inches shorter. But Curtis has got 35 professional fights to Allen's 21. He's got 423 minutes in the professional cage. The guy is an absolute veteran. He's been a pro for 6 years longer than Allen. But it's Allen, obviously, who's fought a higher percentage of his career at the highest level. Chris Curtis knocks people out. He's got a 60% finish rate, 56% by knockout, only 4% by submission. So he's a good boxer. The guy likes to knock people out using his hands. Brendan Allen, 53% of his wins by submission, 29% by knockout. So that is a 82% finish rate as a pro. Very impressive. Chris Curtis has been finished in only 2 of his 8 pro losses, while Brendan Allen has been finished in 2 of his 4 pro losses. When we look at the striking numbers for Allen, he absorbs just a little bit more than he lands. 52% accurate, 2 knockdowns and 239 significant strikes landed, averaging 0.52 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And he's been knocked down once in 247 significant strikes absorbed. Chris Curtis, landing 6.54 per minute, absorbing 6.85, showing really good striking accuracy up at 67%. Really good power at landing 2 knockdowns and only 105 significant strikes landed, and he's never been knocked down in the UFC. Brendan Allen, 5 of 11 on his takedown attempts. He's spending about 53% of his fights in control time positions. While for Chris Curtis, we don't really know what the number is because his first Contender Series fight had no control time numbers in it. But we do know that Chris Curtis prefers to keep the fight standing and box. So, I guess you could call this a striker versus grappler, but like you said, Brendan Allen has been improving his striking by leaps and bounds, and you never know if he might want to test his striking here against Chris Curtis. I just don't think it would be a good idea after Curtis knocked out Hawes. That is a legitimate win. If you think that's a fluke, I would suggest that it isn't. This guy Curtis has 35 professional fights. He's not new to the game, and he's been fighting guys like Magomed Karamov, Ray Cooper. This guy has fought some really legitimate competition here prior to getting to the UFC, and I think you fade this guy at your own peril because he's very well tested. He'll take any fight anytime, and I think he's very dangerous on the feet here. And Brendan Allen is just young enough to be the kind of guy who falls in love with his hands and tries to prove a point on the feet like he did against Sean Strickland. And that didn't work out well for him. And if he tries to do it again against Curtis without mixing in the grappling, I think that this is going to be a very close fight.
Yeah, it could be. We see that it is not lined closely at all. Brendan Allen is the biggest favorite on the card, which kind of surprises me because a lot of people were on Curtis against Hawes, and I feel like people will be going right back to him here. Brendan Allen opened at minus 300. He's now minus 350, so early money coming in on Brendan Allen. Curtis opened up plus 250. He's now plus 285. I think if Brendan Allen comes out here and looks at the Hawes fight and says, hey, this guy Curtis, he has some power. Maybe I should test my, take this down to the mat, because Brendan Allen on the mat this guy's phenomenal. He is so good. Like he took down Aaron Jeffrey in the first round, submitted him. He took down Kevin Holland, who's a black belt, submitted him. He got Tom Breeze down in the first round, knocked him out. He was able to control Kyle Dawkins for the majority of that fight, hurt him bad in the first round. Kyle Dawkins is a legit grappler. He was able to take down Carl Roberson, submit him with an ankle lock. This guy is so good on the mat. He's a black belt in BJJ. He's very good. The problem is, like you said, yes, he's fell in love with his hands a little bit. Only one takedown attempt against Soriano. No takedown attempts, I don't believe, against Sean Strickland. None, which is very weird. I guess he wanted to maybe test out his striking, but that was a horrible idea. Against Carl Roberson, though, he did take him down twice, got the submission. I feel like if he comes out here and says, hey, I'm going to take down Chris Curtis, I feel like he absolutely looks minus 350. I think he even looks minus 400 if he comes out here and says, hey, I'm going to take down Chris Curtis. But as we know, that may not happen. But Chris Curtis, from what I've seen, his takedown defense is very suspect, gets taken down easily, and then his ground game leaves a lot to be desired. And also, this isn't Curtis's actual weight class. I believe he fights at 170. This will be at 185 as well. So, yeah, it's all up to Brendan Allen. If he's going to come out here and take this fight down to the mat, yeah, I think the price is more than warranted. But if he strikes with Curtis, he's not going to look minus 350. He's not going to look minus 400. But yeah, you'd go back to the Hawes fight. Chris Curtis, very good knockout. I agree. It was definitely not a fluke. I don't think anybody should be calling that. But Phil Hawes was teeing off on this guy. He was outlanding him pretty heavily. And then all of a sudden he does catch Phil Hawes, who has been chinny, but nobody's been able to get Phil Hawes out of there yet. And then he finishes Phil Hawes. So very good win there. But yeah, I like Brendan Allen here. I guess the problem I'm having is he going to wrestle or is he not? If he does wrestle, yeah, he'll look minus 400. If not, he won't look minus 400. But again, the striking looked much improved. He will be the bigger guy as well. I do like that. But yeah, give me Brendan Allen here to win and win by submission. We see that the fight goes to decision is plus 165. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 215. The over is set at 1.5. Over 1.5 rounds, minus 200. The under 1.5 rounds is plus 160. I don't really want anything to do with the time props, but the pick is Allen. The pick is Allen inside the distance, probably by submission. But if he just decides not to wrestle, It could be a little bit closer than the line does indicate.
Yeah, and I mean, Curtis has been only finished twice in his 8 losses. The guy is notoriously tough, and if I'm not mistaken, I think one of those two was a result of an injury. So I don't think the guy has really ever legitimately been knocked out, if I'm not mistaken on that.
He's been knocked out once.
But was it because of an injury?
No, he got clipped pretty hard against Ray
Oh,
Cooper.
he did. Okay. I don't know why I thought that one of those finishes was there was something about it. But either way, the dude is extremely tough. And while Allen is a good finisher, Chris Curtis has been on the mat with some killers. Guys like Magomed Karamov and Cooper and those guys. So we can't be that Hawes win is a big deal. I kind of like the plus money here on Curtis. I'm a big believer in this guy's ability, and we have seen Brendan Allen make some questionable decisions in the cage. If he chooses not to wrestle here, he could find himself in some trouble. And at the current line, I can't support betting on him here. I would rather put money on Curtis than I would on Allen. And something tells me that this fight is going to go to decision. Then it's so that I kind of like the plus money on that because both of these guys have been pretty damn hard to finish. Brendan Allen, got finished by Strawn Strickland. There's really not a lot of shame in that. Strickland is a top 5 middleweight right now, and the guy is absolutely on fire. So, and then Chris Curtis's, the huge win against Hawes. I can't wait for this fight, man. And Chris Curtis, they say that this isn't his weight class. Chris Curtis doesn't have a weight class. If you give that guy a contract, he's fighting. It doesn't matter if it's a 265 or 170. He can make any of these weight classes, and he'll fight anybody anytime on short notice. This is another one. Can't wait for this one. I'm probably not going to bet on it, but I do like Allen here, but I think that line is way too wide.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. BP, real talk, if Allen loses, cut him. Wow. Tim saying Allen sub round 1, round 2. Curtis can take a beating. Exactly. Brady has to see Hawes winning until he wasn't. Yeah, I picked Hawes in that fight. I didn't bet him, but I was like, dude, why aren't you shooting for takedowns? But he got knocked out there. But yeah, should be a good fight there. Allen.
Check it out, Brady. That somebody brought it up here in the chat that it was the second fight of the night when Curtis got knocked out by Ray Cooper. He had already fought earlier that night, a real grinding decision win, I believe. So that's why I thought it was a little bit weird. He has been knocked out, but it was the second fight of the night.
Yeah, and he did get submitted, I think, in like the second fight of his entire career. Let me go back. He got submitted back in 2011.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great fight. I'm really glad that Chris Curtis is a part of the UFC because, he had a great Contender Series win and for some reason didn't get a contract that night after, knocking a dude out with a spinning hook kick. It was awesome. So it's good to see him in the UFC now. I think the Action Man's going to be here to stay for a while. Can't wait to see this fight, man. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he should have been in the UFC already. If you guys saw the knockout on the Contender Series, no excuse for not signing him there. But yeah, glad he is in there now. Moving on, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 fights left. We have Jimmy Crute going against Jamahal Hill. Jimmy Crute, 25 years old, 6'2", with a 74-inch reach. Jamahal Hill, 30 years old, 6'4", with a 79-inch reach. Crute is going to be 5 years younger, 2-inch height disadvantage, and a 5-inch reach disadvantage as well. Take a look at the last few fights. We have Jimmy Crute, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Had a knockout win against Sam Alvey, a submission loss to Misha Serkinov, a submission win over Mikhail Olosechuk, a knockout win against Modestas Bukauskas, and a knockout loss, a leg injury against Anthony Smith after that first round. Jamahal Hill, 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win over Darko Stosic and had a knockout win over Clifton Abreu. I believe he popped for some marijuana, got no contest there. Knockout win over Oven St. Preux, and then a knockout loss to Paul Craig. So, yeah, I have a lot to say on this fight, Weezy. So, you take a look at Jimmy Crute. His striking's okay. His wrestling's very, very good, and his grappling is phenomenal. This guy is a legit black belt. I believe he's a black belt. In BJJ, his ground game is next level. He went out against Anthony Smith in the last fight. Anthony Smith, somebody who we saw get taken down like a couple times by Rakic. Rakic was able to just lay on him for 15 minutes And I thought Anthony Smith was probably done. This was a guy that has a 50% takedown defense or worse. I thought Jimmy Crute has an easy win if he goes out there and wrestles Anthony Smith. But Jimmy Crute comes out there and he doesn't shoot a takedown. He strikes with Anthony Smith up until Anthony Smith hurts his leg bad. And then after he hurts his leg, Jimmy Crute then goes on to get 3 takedowns in 57 seconds. So the wrestling's there, the grappling's there, but what the heck happened in that Anthony Smith fight? I thought it was a very good matchup for him, but no. So that's a concern for me. If Jimmy Crute comes out here and wants to strike with Jamahal Hill, I don't think it'll end well for him. But if Jimmy Crute comes out here and it takes down Jamahal Hill, I think it is a very good fight for him. We take a look at Jamahal Hill in his UFC debut against Darko Stosic. I went back and watched that fight, and Jamahal Hill was getting taken down so easily, and it was extremely concerning. We saw that Darko Stosic took him down 6 times. Darko Stosic was 6 for 9 on takedowns. He wasn't able to control him much, but took him down 6 times nonetheless. And then he fights Klitzen Abreu, who I believe is a black belt. I thought, hey, maybe Klitzen, who's a black belt, is going to try to exploit the 50% takedown defense of Jamahal Hill. And he did not. He shot 0 takedowns, got knocked out in 1:51. And then I thought, okay, maybe OSP. OSP is a solid grappler. He's a veteran of the sport. Maybe OSP wants to take down Jamahal Hill, test that takedown defense. OSP shoots 0 takedowns. And then after that, he goes against Paul Craig. He's a huge favorite. And then Paul Craig snaps his arm just about. So, if Crute fights smart, I think this is such a good matchup for him. I thought that if OSP and Klitzen Abreu fought smart and try to take him down, they'd have success. But yeah, give me Crute here, but I don't know if I can trust him. I've heard people say that Jamahal Hill's made improvements in his takedown defense, and my answer to that is my question to that is where? Because I have seen no improvements because I haven't seen anybody try to take him down. But you got to believe, Weezy, that Jimmy Crute is going to try to get this fight down to the mat. Like in the Olazechuk fight, he took down Olazechuk 8 times in 3 minutes and submitted him. I think if he gets this fight down to the mat, fight smart, I think he submits Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill, believe it, he's a decent grappler, but I think he's a blue belt, whereas Crute, a legit black belt, phenomenal grappler. I think it's a very, very, very good fight for Crute if he shows some fight IQ this time.
Oh, God. I've got so much to say about this fight. I watched all the tape on both of these guys. I lost 2 units on Jimmy Crute in the Anthony Smith fight, and it had to be one of the most frustrating bets I've ever placed in my life. And I brought this up the last time we talked about the Anthony Smith Rakic fight, right? And I remember telling you on Stat Diggers a couple months back, I'm like, Brady, how many takedowns did Rakic get versus Smitty?
0.
0 fucking takedowns. And he still controlled him for 13 and a half minutes of that fight. Didn't even have to take him down. Like, you could walk towards Anthony Smith. And if Anthony Smith doesn't shift his shoulders and you bump into him lightly, he falls on his ass and he stays there for the rest of the round. So why wouldn't you take him down? And then, not only that, there had to have been about 15 leg kicks landed in that fight. Smitty landed 2 of them. 2. The first one he landed shut down Crute's leg. It was Crute who was landing all the leg kicks. And, the first one that landed, Smith threw another one right behind it, and that's when Crute folded like a lawn chair. So, we've seen Jimmy Crute show the requisite fight IQ in order to win UFC fights. When he fought Michael Oleksiejczuk, who's a pure striker, he went to the wrestling over and over again and finished the fight. He knocked out Sam Alvey, who's a powerful lefty, with his striking. He knocked out Bukauskas with his striking. We've seen him grapple with Paul Craig and Misha Serkinov and get the better of most of the exchanges with Craig. And really, him and Serkinov were going back and forth on the ground. It was a great fight. And he just kind of stuck his head into that Peruvian necktie that, and then, with Serkinov's next level squeeze, you can't make a mistake against that kind of guy on the ground. But, the thing about Jamahal Hill is he was such a hype train going into that Paul Craig fight. But I remember you and I were talking about this as well. We were saying, how can you be a hype train when you beat guys that should be wrestling you, and between the two of them, they don't even shoot a takedown. You know, I mean, Klitz and Abreu showed such abysmal fight IQ in that Jamahal Hill fight. It was so bad. I mean, like, Jamahal Hill knocked him down twice. Knocked him down twice, and Klitz and Abreu still didn't shoot a takedown. And it was the same thing in the St. Preux fight. So who's going to be – is Crute going to be a dumbass here? Because I really think that's the only way he loses this fight, is if he thinks that he's going to outstrike Jamahal Hill. And while he should not think that ever, I can't guarantee that he doesn't think that, because he didn't shoot a takedown against Anthony Smith, the easiest light heavyweight in the world to take down. There's not one guy that's easier, that folds like a lawn chair more than Anthony Smith. And fucking Crute couldn't figure it out. So, you know, can we count on him to make good decisions here? We've seen him do it in the past. He's done it. He's been in striker versus grappler matchups before, where he went to his grappling, swallowed his pride, and took the easiest path to victory. There's a very easy path to victory here for Jimmy Crute. It's called wrestling, top control, and submission attempts. Can we count on him to take it? I don't know. I can't. I lost 2 units on him, and when I know, when I have a better game plan for you than your coach does, that's a bad situation to be in the UFC. This is not golf. This is not tennis. You can't decide in a mixed martial arts cage that you're just going to try some shit. Because when you try something in a tennis match, maybe you might lose. When you try something with, you know, maybe like turning your foot a little bit in on your driver in your golf game, you're not going to die, you know, if you make a mistake. But when you go into a cage as a UFC fighter and decide to try shit that could potentially get you knocked out, submitted, you know, really badly hurt, and then you do try that shit and you pull stunts like Crute did, I don't know, man. I think Crute should win this fight, absolutely. But can I count on him to wrestle here? I don't know if I can count on him to wrestle.
If we could count on him, it would be a pretty easy bet here at minus 180. He opened up at minus 220, is now minus 180. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 305. The fight goes to decision is plus 225. The over-under set at 1.5 rounds. Over 1.5 rounds, minus 125. Under is minus 105. Yeah, I'm really tempted on Crute here. I think if he does use that wrestling game plan, he will look like a huge favorite here. I think the levels on the ground is huge difference. And I think Crute has phenomenal wrestling. And I think he has, solid cardio for as much wrestling that I've seen him go to in the past. His cardio is fairly good. And yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see, OSP try to take down Hill. I would have liked to see Abreu take down Hill. They both didn't, but you got to think that Crute comes out here, gets takedowns, and probably finishes this fight inside the distance. So yeah, I like Crute. Yeah, I might take a shot on Crute. I'm curious to see where the line does go. Looks like some money as of late is coming in on the Crute side. I don't really want to mess with the props. I could potentially see a decision either way, believe it or not. But yeah, if anything on this fight, it's going to be the Crute money line. But yeah, like you said, can we trust him to get takedowns? I don't know. But if he does, I think he looks like a huge favorite.
If he does, he will look like a huge favorite. When we were talking about the Craig Hill fight, we were both on Paul Craig there. And one of the reasons that I was on Paul Craig was I said, I don't even think he needs a takedown. Paul Craig is the kind of guy who understands who he is well enough that if he doesn't get the takedown, he'll just pull guard. And that's exactly what he did. He pulled guard. He got the fight to where he wanted it. He gave Jamahal Hill the kind of fight that you would want to give Jamahal Hill if you feel like winning, right? If you feel like beating Jamahal Hill, how about you take the guy down, okay? So that's what Craig did. He got the fight to the ground and he finished it. And he finished it very, very quickly. So hopefully Crute decides to take the path of least resistance here. Hopefully he learned from the abysmal fight IQ and game plan that he had in the Anthony Smith fight. Because if he can't learn from that mistake, man, Jamahal Hill is going to punt his head into the third fucking row. And if he doesn't shoot for takedowns, I hope he gets his fucking head punted. I really do. I mean, I think, like that Crute is the smart bet here because he has the easiest path to victory here. But man, I'll tell you something. If I bet him here and he gets his head punted in the third row, I'm probably going to laugh, because then I'm like, maybe he'll learn from this one.
Yeah, maybe for sure. Something we didn't mention though is how bad Jamahal Hill's striking defense is. Currently sitting at 45%. Darko Stosic, went back and watched that fight. Darko was landing clean on this guy. So I think if Crute decides, hey, I'm not going to wrestle, yes, I do favor Hill, but I don't think it's like a huge discrepancy. But yeah, Hill's going to have the volume advantage and he's going to have the reach, but Hill is very, very hittable.
Yeah, but look at those volume numbers for Hill. He throws 14.4 significant strikes a minute, and his opponents only throw 6.55. Wow, that's serious volume advantages there. So yeah, while Crute's landing 4.26 and absorbing 2.71, and I'm sorry, I didn't get into the numbers here because I had so much to say about the way that these guys have fought in the past, but Crute's got that 80% takedown percentage. Jamahal Hill's only got 57% striking defense. Jamahal Hill's fights take place in the grappling realm only about 10% of the time. So the easiest way here for Crute is just to use that 80% takedown percentage, the 4.97 takedowns per 15 minutes, out-controlling your opponents at a better than 2-to-1 ratio. That's how he wins this fight. And if he does that, it should be pretty easy for him, because there are levels on the ground here, and Jamahal Hill is not on Jimmy Crute's level on the ground.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And yeah, those numbers are crazy, right? Like Crute, 15 takedowns attempted, it got 12 of them, 80%. Like that's nuts. That is very nuts. So
that's fantastic. That's the best. That's the best takedown percentage in the division.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see if he comes in here with a good game plan, get this fight down to the mat. I will probably be pulling the trigger on Jimmy Crute. I really like this fight for him, but hopefully he does fight smart. Moving on to the next fight here, we have Clay Guida going against Leonardo Santos. Clay Guida, 39 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach. Leonardo Santos, 41 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. This fight is weird. We have Santos, who is very old, 41 years old. He's going to be 2 years older, and he's going to have a massive 5-inch height advantage and a massive 5-inch reach advantage as well. So Santos is going to be the much bigger fighter, but he's going to be the older fighter. But with that said, you take a look at Clay Guida, he's had 57 fights, whereas Santos has only had 23. So in fight years, Clay Guida is probably like 7 years old, where Santos is a lot less. But, Santos is 41, and he is starting to look it a little bit. But I really do like this guy. I just wish he would have been, more active throughout his career. A 19-year career that you'll get into easy, and he's only had 23 fights. So a guy that, rarely ever fights. But we take a look at the last couple fights here. Santos, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Kevin Lee, a decision win against Martins, a knockout win against Stevie Ray, a decision win against Bogatov, and then a knockout loss against Grant Dawson, a fight where a lot of people thought that, Santos was up, possibly 2-0 in that fight, and then ends up losing by knockout with like 1 second left. Remember, I think you cashed a Dawson third round ticket on that one, Weezy. Shout out to you on that. Nice hit there. As far as Clay Guida, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision win over BJ Penn, a submission loss to Jim Miller, a decision loss to Bobby Green, a decision win against Michael Johnson, and a decision loss to Mark Madsen. So, man, I really like Santos in this matchup. There's only one thing that concerns me, and that one thing, there's two things. Two things. One being the age, 41 years old, and the other one being the cardio. One guy has phenomenal cardio in Clay Guida, and one guy has awful cardio in Santos. I feel like Santos wins this fight more often than not. I feel like he's going to have the advantage everywhere. I think on the feet, he's going to be the better striker. I really like what I see from Santos in terms of his striking, knocking out guys like Stevie Ray, knocking out Kevin Lee. And then also the grappling is going to be, a ton in favor of Santos, a legit BJJ black belt. This guy's grappling is on another level. And we see that Clay Guida has been submitted 10 times in his career. So the path to victory is on the table. On the feet, for me, it's Santos. Clay Guida is somebody that got outstruck in 3 rounds by Mark Madsen, the wrestler. So I think Santos is a better striker. And then when it hits the mat, if it hits the mat, I think it'll be over shortly after. So for me, it's Santos pretty much all day. The one pause I do have, the 2 pauses, is the age and the cardio is pretty bad. So what do you think about this one, Weezy?
Yeah, I'm with you on Santos here. Like you mentioned, it's really hard to bet a guy that lost a striking match to Mark Madsen. And that just happened. That was the most recent fight, and he lost. He got outboxed by by Mark Madsen, and Madsen didn't even try to take him down. So the thing is, though, it's that Santos is not a great takedown artist here. He's only gotten 7 takedowns in 9 UFC fights. But the thing is that I'm not worried about Santos being 41 here because he's the 2-year older guy, but he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. He's 5 inches taller. But the problem is that Clay Guida has 550 minutes in the cage as a pro. And we know that once you get past a certain amount of minutes, the likelihood that you're going to win fights anymore is just going way, way down. This guy has taken a lot of attrition. The fact that he's got double-digit submission losses and he's fighting a guy in Santos who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, one of the best to ever do it. You got it. I hate this matchup for Clay Guida, and I'm a huge Clay Guida fan. We talk about both of these guys are great wrestlers, but they both spend a ton of time in control time positions. Guida, about 49% of his career, in 48% of his career in control time positions. Santos, 43% of his career in control time positions. But Clay Guida still, he can't hit water if he fell out of a boat. 33% striking accuracy, but 63% striking defense is really good. When we look at the strength of schedule numbers, Santos has fought the better win-loss ratio competition, but it's been Guida who's fought the more experienced competition. And that's not surprising. Even though Guida has fought just about everybody that the division has to offer, it's Santos who's fought the better win-loss ratio competition here. And Guida's been, fighting BJ Penn, Jim Miller, Michael Johnson, Bobby Green, Mark Madsen, good competition, but, a lot of these guys definitely on their way out. Miller, Penn, Johnson, while Santos, that was a hell of a way to lose a fight because, like you said, that was his fight. He was going to win that decision, and I had that 3rd round prop on Dawson, and with 5 seconds left, I started walking to the kitchen to refill my water, and then I heard, and I went running back to the screen and found out I cashed that bet. So that was a fun one, but both of these guys are pretty good on the wrestling in terms of being able to keep the fight on the feet, but if this fight stays on the feet, I really do think that Santos is going to win handily. And, what's Clay going to do? Is he going to take down Leonardo Santos and play the ground game with this guy? No, I don't like this fight for Guida. And frankly, at this point, this will be his 58th professional fight. This will be his 32nd UFC fight. There's really not much left here for Clay Guida to do. He's going to be 40 years old in a couple of weeks. I'd like to see Clay hang him up here and, enjoy his retirement because this guy has fought literally everybody. He's probably a UFC Hall of Famer. I hope he is because I think he's done everything that you need to do to get into the Hall of Fame. One of the most exciting fighters to ever do it. I just don't like this matchup for Santos. For Guida, way less tread on the tires here for Leonardo Santos. I think he's going to win this one by submission.
Yeah. So, Santos, height advantage, big height advantage, 5 inches, 5-inch reach advantage, the striking advantage, the grappling advantage. I think it's a significant grappling advantage. And even like you said, if Clay Guida wants to take down Santos, which would be a huge mistake in its own right, even if he wants to, Santos' takedown defense is very, very good. 89%, nearly 90%. We saw that he was able to stuff the majority of the takedowns from Dawson, who's a better wrestler than Guida at this point. So, yeah, like I said, the only thing that worries me would be the cardio, and that's about it. But just taking a look at this line, I'm pretty intrigued in the Santos side. We see that Santos opened up minus 260, currently minus 185. Clay Guida opened up plus 220, currently plus 160. And I kind of more so agree with the opener of minus 260. I think he should be a much bigger favorite, like we talked about. Losing a 15-minute striking fight with Mark freaking Madsen, dude. That's not good. Santos, Santos, at the very least, I feel like he should win the first 2 rounds. The third round might get sweaty, but I think he finishes him here. So yeah, I like Santos, and I like the money line as well. I might be taking a look at the -185. At best I see is like -185. So yeah, I might take a look at the -185 there. Fight goes to decision, -170. Fight doesn't go to decision, it's +130. If Guida wins, it's going to be by decision, which is +250. That's not great. If Santos wins, I feel like it could be inside the distance, which is +205, which is decent. So any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go? Any props?
Yeah, I mean, if Santos inside the distance at +205, I think is a great spot, because Guida is, he gets submitted a lot.
A lot.
So, and we know how good Santos is on the mat. So, yeah, that would be a way that I'd be looking to play it, because I really do think that if Santos wins this fight, it probably will be inside the distance. So, and like you said, that third round could get hairy, man, if Santos doesn't finish him, because the conditioning discrepancy between these two is quite wide.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing. Like, the conditioning is a big thing, because Bogatov, who probably doesn't belong in the UFC, was able to win in that third round against Santos, but he did like kick him in the nuts like 5 times, but still he's able to beat him in that third round. And then same thing with Dawson, beat him in the third round as well. So yeah, that would be my only concern. But yeah, maybe inside the distance is the move, especially at +205, a little bit better of a price tag. So yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. But we'll keep moving on. We have 151 of you hanging here in the chat. Shout out to all you guys watching live and on replay as well. If y'all can please smash the like button, that'd be much, much appreciated. We have 2 fights left to go on a 14-fight card, and we have the co-main event, which is a very good co-main event, a very good fight here. We have Brad Riddell going against Rafael Fiziev. We have Riddell, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Fiziev, 28 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. Fiziev going to be 2 years younger, 1-inch height advantage in the same reach there. We see that Brad Riddell is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Jamie Mullarkey, a very fun and exciting fight, won a decision against Magomed Mustafayev, won a decision against Alex Da Silva, and then also a decision against Drew Dober. So 4-0 in the UFC is Brad Riddell. As far as Rafael Fiziev, he is 4-1 in the UFC. I believe he made his UFC debut against Magomed Mustafayev. He lost by a knockout, and then he beat Alex White by decision. He beats Mark Diakese by decision. He knocks out Hanato Moicano, and then he beats Bobby Green by decision as well. So, yeah, Weezy, I'm really curious to see the stats on this one, because on paper, it seems like this one's like a complete pick'em. Flip a coin on this one. Both guys, phenomenal strikers. But yeah, curious to see what you think on this fight.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the stats aren't going to help much either, because it winds up putting us kind of like in the exact same spot that the books have put us in, and that's it. This is going to be a damn close fight. We look at Fiziev, 2 years younger. He's got a 1-inch height advantage. He fights out of both stances, but both these guys have an identical reach. They have the identical amount of professional fights. Riddell has spent about 20 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 2 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. And then Fiziev, just 1 more UFC fight, but 10 minutes less in the UFC cage. 70% finish rate for Fiziev, 50% finish rate by Riddell. They've both been finished in their only loss. So 2 combined losses, 2 of them inside the distance. And when we look at the striking numbers, we see that Riddell lands more than he absorbs. So 4.75 landed, 3.18 absorbed per minute, 54% striking accuracy. Both of these guys' power numbers are almost identical. And it's Riddell, it's got better percentage-wise striking defense and better striking ratios. As we see, Fiziev gets out-volumed by his opponents by, about 1.6 significant strikes per minute. And actually absorbs more than he lands. He lands 5.34, but absorbs 5.76. And he's been knocked down once, while Riddell has never been knocked down. But the power number is very, very similar for both of these guys on the offensive side. It's been Riddell who's wrestled more here, as he's attempted 19 takedowns in 4 fights, while Fiziev has only attempted 4 takedowns in 5 fights. It's Fiziev's fights who are taking place in control time positions about 12% of the time, while for Riddell, it's actually about 42% of the time. So it seems like Riddell's fights have been much more likely to go to the grappling for a couple of reasons. One is that Riddell attempts about 5 takedown attempts per fight. So he's more likely to try to get the fight to the ground. But also, Riddell's takedown defense hasn't been great. So he's been able to be taken down and controlled, while for Fiziev, he's shown 100% takedown defense in his 5 UFC fights. He's successfully defended all 18 takedown attempts against him. So while Riddell has been more efficient on the feet, more accurate, better defensively, just as good in the power, and less likely to get knocked down, it's also Riddell who's more likely to try to wrestle here, but it's also going to be Fiziev who has the ability to keep the fight standing. So I guess it depends. Does Riddell want to take this fight to the ground? Because I think that this fight will just remain standing. I do expect both of these guys to just test out their kickboxing against each other. That's both what they do best. And while Riddell has been the more willing grappler in his UFC tenure thus far compared to Fiziev, I don't know if I'd be trying to take down Fiziev in his 100% takedown defense. I think it could be a waste of energy. And both of these guys are elite kickboxers, so I think that they're probably going to test their kickboxing skills against each other. When we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, it's Riddell who has the better win-loss ratio, but it's Fiziev who's fighting the more experienced competition. The wins are very similar for both of these guys. So, but we do have Riddell who has beaten Mustafayev while Fiziev got knocked out by him. So in the common opponent thing, that gives a little bit of an edge to Riddell. I think the striking metrics give a little bit of an edge to Riddell, while the grappling metrics, in my opinion, are a little more for Fiziev because he can decide whether the fight wants to be on the ground or not, while Riddell has shown poor takedown defense. So I think that if somebody does try to grapple here, it'll probably be Fiziev doing it with a little bit more success. So this is a very close fight, though. I'm really not leaning either way yet. How about you?
No, I mean, I think this should just be a straight up pick 'em. I mean, this is such a close fight. Both very high level strikers. I guess the only thing that does stick out a little bit is, we have seen Fiziev slow down in a couple fights. I mean, the Bobby Green fight was one that he really did slow down a lot in. And by the way, Bobby Green goes out there and outstrikes this guy in every single round. Obviously, Fiziev does win because he lands the harder shots, but still very impressive for Bobby Green, outlanding Fiziev 32-25 in the first, 45-36 in the second, and then 66-43 in the third. But yeah, Fiziev did slow down a lot in that third round there. Yeah, in terms of the takedowns, like I'm with you. I don't think a lot of this fight's going to take place on the mat. You mentioned the 100% takedown defense of Fiziev. He was able to stuff all 11 takedowns from Alex White. He was able to stuff about 4 or 5 from Mark Diakese, and he stuffed Renato Moicano's only takedown attempt as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think it primarily plays out on the feet. I think it's going to be very competitive. I do see Riddell probably having a good chance of winning that third round. And for that reason, I'll probably side with him. And I think he may try to, take down Fiziev. Will he be successful? Probably not, but maybe try. It's a close fight, though. I mean, I have no strong lean one way or another. But if anything, I'd probably take the dog money on Riddell, if anything, but not confident in it. We see that Brad Riddell actually opened up as a favorite, minus 130, currently plus 102. Fiziev opened up plus 110. He's currently minus 122. If I had to line it, it'd be a pick 'em. It'd be a pick 'em for me. The fight goes to decision, minus 190. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 150. The over 2.5 rounds, minus 185. Under 2.5 rounds is plus 155. Yeah, I kind of like the over there, but and now it's minus 220. So the minus 185 is not even there anymore. So now minus 220. So yeah, this is gonna be a pass for me, Weezy. I'm gonna sit back and watch it. If Brad Riddell becomes too big of a dog, maybe I'll take the shot, but no strong lead one way or another for me.
Yeah, me neither. But for me, the biggest sticking point for me is that conditioning of Fiziev. He slows down late in fights. I think he throws too much into his strikes, and he doesn't seem like he's got a potential to have a 5-round gas tank. And I know it's a 3-round fight, but he slows down in every third round, and we saw Green really start to put him on him in the third round of the last fight. And yeah, that would be the only thing that would keep me from betting Fiziev here is I could see Riddell having a big third round, and I think it'll be close up until then. So, yeah, I think I'm going to pick Riddell here, but I cannot see myself betting this fight.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that Fiziev probably wins the first, and I think there's a good chance that Riddell probably wins the third. So who's gonna win the second? Who knows? But close fight regardless. Well, shout out to Big Show Picks. Pub Sports has a 10% off of merch right now when you go use Pub Sports at the promo in the description. Go check it out. Yeah, I might have to give me some Pub Sports merch. Shout out to Big Show hanging out in the chat. Let's move on to the main event here. And yeah, it's a good one. I like this main event. We have Rob Font going against Jose Aldo. We have Rob Font, 34 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. Jose Aldo, 35 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Reminder that me and Weezy will be going live on my channel, DFS by the Numbers, doing a main event deep dive, breaking it down more into depth and going through it from a betting perspective as well. So check that out on my channel, DFS by the Numbers, tomorrow around 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So Rob Font is going to be, 1 year younger, 34. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage, 5'8". He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage as well. So tail of the tape going to Rob Font, but ever so slightly. We do see, though, that Jose Aldo is going to have more mileage on him. He's had 37 fights, whereas Rob Font has had 23. So in terms of the last couple fights, Rob Font, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Rafael Assunção, a decision win against Sergio Pettis, a decision win against Ricky Simone, a knockout win against Marlon Moraes, and a decision win against Cody Garbrandt. As far as Jose Aldo, he has 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Lost to Alexander Volkanovski, no shame in that. A loss to Marlon Moraes, a little shame in that. But I did think he possibly won that fight. And then a knockout loss to Piotr Jan. I believe it was in the 5th round there. And then he won against Marlon Vera. Close fight, but he was able to win that 3rd round pretty convincingly, get the decision there. And then he won against Pedro Munoz. I thought he looked really good in that fight. And I thought he did not look 35 years old in that fight. I thought he looked a lot younger. Good performance there against Pedro Munoz. So, yep, I mean, it's a good fight here. I think the youth advantage goes to Font. I know he's only 1 year younger, but like I said, in fight years, I think the cardio advantage goes to Font, and I think the output goes to Font. But this is a pretty close fight. Jose Aldo has fought, the better competition. He's the more experienced fighter. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, this is such a good main event. Both, two of these guys, 2 of the best boxers in the UFC, especially at this weight class. It's Aldo with 14 more fights and almost 200 more minutes in the in the cage as a pro. Both of these guys fighting about half of their careers at the UFC level, but it's Aldo with 175 more minutes of UFC cage time. Both of these guys finished at about a 60% clip, mostly by knockout, as Aldo 57% by knockout, only 3% by sub, while Font actually has a decent amount of submissions on his record, 21% by sub, 42% by knockout. Aldo's been finished in 5 of his 7 losses. Font's been finished in 1 of his 4 losses. And then when we look at the striking numbers, we're going to see that Font lands 2 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, showing really good power, probably knocking with 6 knockdowns in 12 fights. So really good power for Rob Font. And then a 61% striking defense as well for Font. So he's really good on the feet. Jose Aldo definitely gets out-volumed by his opponents. He is kind of low volume. He throws 7.94 significant strike attempts per minute, but his opponents throw 9.95. So he's getting out-volumed by 2 significant strike attempts per minute, but he only gets outlanded by about a half significant strike per minute. So he's good defensively at almost 60%, and he's fairly accurate at 44%. Both these guys have good power, but it's Font that really does have the power numbers that jump off the page a little bit more than Aldo does. When we look at the grappling numbers here, Font, 25 takedown attempts in 12 fights. He gets them in a 40% clip. His fights take place at control time positions about 25% of the time. And for Aldo, it's about 23% of the time. If I would give the grappling advantage to Jose Aldo for 2 reasons. One, he's just more, he's a better grappler when he's on the ground. He's more dangerous. He's a black belt, but it's the 89% takedown defense of Aldo that makes all the difference in the world. You could see that this guy's comfortable striking, and he wants to keep the fight there. And having 89% striking defense, if you're comfortable striking, takedown defense, if you're comfortable striking, is a great quality to have. And while we see that Rob Font has only 53% takedown defense. So if Jose Aldo wants to try to get this fight to the ground, he should be able to. But boy, we just don't see Jose Aldo wrestling. We saw him get an entire round of control time against Marlon Vera a couple of fights ago, but he didn't even get a takedown there. He just got his back almost immediately and then just rode out the rest of the round. So, we could see Jose Aldo go to the grappling, but it's something that we really can't count on. Only 22 takedown attempts in 18 fights. And I can't even remember the last time he got one of those takedowns. It's been a very long time. So it would seem that Font's going to be better on the feet, and it would seem that Aldo is going to be better on the ground. But I do see this fight taking place at striking range most of the time. And Jose Aldo's got a lot of weapons. He sets things up with his jab, then he starts going to the body, and then once he's gotten your range with the jab and the body, he'll start throwing those leg kicks. And once the leg kicks start landing, that's when Jose Aldo is very, very difficult to deal with, because he mixes up the target so well. He's such an accurate boxer, and he hits very hard. The problem is that both of these guys are orthodox fighters, and Rob Font's jab is fantastic. It's a piston. It's very accurate. He sets up all of his other strikes with it. If there's one guy here that's going to be throwing more leg kicks, it's probably going to be Font. I'd like to see Jose Aldo go to those leg kicks a lot more. I know Smooth Cat was in the chat saying, I wonder if Aldo's going to remember that he has vicious leg kicks. And if you're on the Aldo side, you better hope that he does, because that is really when he's at his best. If you go back and you watch that Peter Yan fight, Peter Yan switches stances halfway through the second round when Jose Aldo starts landing those leg kicks, man. And it made a big difference. Jose Aldo was doing a very good job of boxing with Yan until the fourth round, which is when Yan got it to the ground and really started working that top game. And then the fifth round got really nasty. And I think that Jose Aldo got hurt really bad to the body early in the first round there, and it really made a difference on the conditioning. This is a great fight, Brady. These are two great stand-up guys. Jose Aldo does a better job of mixing up the attacks and going to the legs, the body, and the head, while Rob Font will be working that jab, and everything else that he does will be coming off of that jab. I think that this is Font on the feet. I think if Jose Aldo wants to start using those leg kicks and go to the grappling, that he could win some minutes there, but we haven't seen enough of it. And Jose Aldo, the wins over Vera and Munoz were close fights, while we see Font going out there and, just dusting Moraes, dominating Cody Garbrandt for 5 rounds, and dealing with the great wrestling attack of a Ricky Simon. I think I'm picking Font here. The one thing that I was telling you, Brady, was I think if Jose Aldo wanted to make this a tougher fight for Font, I'd like to see him fight southpaw. If he fought southpaw, he could take that jab away from Font, and I think it would make Font, kind of maybe make him a little bit desperate to kind of get his offense going. And if he did, open up southpaw here, and we could see Jose strike from that position for a while, I think it would have a hard time for Font to set up that jab, and that could be a good thing for Aldo on the feet. But I'm going to be picking Rob Font. As far as one of these guys winning inside the distance or not, I think this probably does go all 5 rounds, but I don't really have a read on the time props here.
Yep, I'm with you there on the Font side. We see that Font opened up minus 115. He's currently minus 139. Jose Aldo opened up minus 105. He's currently plus 119. So some money is coming in on the Font side. You brought up the leg kicks. I think those would be very useful, but you take a look at Jose Aldo's last 12 fights. There's only been 2 fights where he landed 10 plus. I believe one was a Holloway fight, and then the other one was against Peter Yan where he landed like 17. But the 10 other fights, he did not land more than 10. And then I thought, like, and also another path to victory, usually against Font, like, what do? You take this guy down. This guy has a terrible 53% takedown defense. But again, like you said, Jose Aldo, the last time he completed a takedown was back in 2014 in February against Ricardo Lamas. So, yeah, I mean, I like Font here. He's going to be the younger guy. He's going to have a height advantage, slight reach advantage as well. I think the jab is going to be key, and then the cardio. And then, like you mentioned, I think the biggest thing is going to be that volume that Font does bring, landing 5.58 significant strikes per minute, very high volume guy, whereas Jose Aldo is landing about 3.51. So, yeah, I like Font as well. I think the price is about accurate. If the line comes down a little bit, maybe I'll take a look at Rob Font. But right now, where the price is, I think it's fair, and I think I'm just going to sit back and watch this one as of now. Unless a lot of money comes in on Jose Aldo, then I'll think about taking a shot on Font, but I don't know if that'll happen. The over sit at 4.5 rounds, over 4.5 rounds, minus 145, under 4.5 rounds, plus 115. The fight goes decision is minus 150. The fight doesn't go decision is plus 120. And yeah, I want nothing to do with those time props. We've been seeing, I think it's like the last like 9 or 10 cards, Weezy, where I think only like 1 or 2 fights have ended inside the distance. So I think this probably does go to decision. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go?
Yeah, I think it's been something like 7 out of the last 9 or 8 out of the last 10 have went the decision, and it's the ones that you didn't think that would that would finish inside the distance that did. It was really weird. So yeah, in terms of the time props, I'm getting a little gun shy because I would expect that this probably will finish inside the distance. Both these guys hit really hard, and they've both got a ton of power. So, and I don't see this grappling a lot. So I think there's going to be a lot of attrition here, a lot of leg kicks, a lot of good straight punches landing. So I would lean that the fight, finishes inside the distance. But Jose Aldo's been finished 5 of 7 losses, but Rob Font only been finished in 1 out of 4, and it was by submission. So yeah, I think I'm just going to stay away from the time props as well. But I do like Rob Font to win.
Yeah, me too. I think if there is a finish, it's probably from Rob Font, 63% finish rate. Like you mentioned, Jose Aldo knocked out 4 times, submitted once, whereas Rob Font only been finished once, and it was by submission there. So, yeah, guys, we did it. Weezy, any final thoughts on the card? Anything you'd like to add on the way out?
Not really, man. 14 fights. We went through all of them, man. And I can't wait to get back to action this weekend, make some money, stack some tickets. It's been too long. 1 week off is too much. I don't know what we're going to do once this thing goes into hibernation for a month, dude.
Yeah, man, it felt weird. No week off, and it feels kind of weird to be back, but I'm glad to be back. Hopefully we knocked off some of the rust there. Shout out to all you guys in the chat. A decent crowd tonight. Thank you all for participating in the chat rooms, bringing the heat. As always, if you guys can smash the like button all the way out. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We go live every Sunday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll be live again on Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Me, Weezy, AJ, and Luke doing the DFS content. I'm on here doing football with Billy as well. So I'm on here a lot. Sometimes I go on with the guys on Saturdays as well. You can follow Uncle Weezy on Twitter, MMA Weezy. Go check him out. And then also on YouTube, Uncle Weezy. He puts out content throughout the week. He does a full card breakdown at Tuesday nights as well after the DraftKings show. So go check him out. And he does go balls deep throughout the week on some videos. You can check me out on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers, YouTube, DFS by the numbers. I'll be getting out my full card breakdown and prediction video either tomorrow night or Tuesday morning. And I agree, crypto. Let's hit that like button on the way out. Maybe get 100 by the time we get out of here. Good luck to you all. UFC Vegas 44. Let's finish this year strong with these final 3 cards. See you guys and good luck.